Well, that's my whole thing with AI as a whole. It's like, okay, why are we not thinking? Because there is a common moral law. That's C.S. Lewis. There's a common moral law, right?
Yeah.
We better train it on the common moral law,
right?
Or we're in trouble.
Yeah, the problem though is you're at the behest of who's the programmer. So then, if you have immoral people, then you essentially have an immoral program.
Well, that's the thing. If it's just all of human experience, then it just gets better at,
at lying, at
being corrupts,
at being sinful,
and absolute power corrupts.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
right. There's that whole thing that's been like viral where they query to say like, can you say one word answer, yes, no, or Apple? Have you seen this thing that's been going around?
Yeah, I saw that.
A bunch of people did it and it kind of went viral, but they essentially went to ChatGPT and they're like, I'm going to answer you a series of questions. You need one word answer yes, no. And if you can't answer truthfully, then just say Apple. They start asking them like, who's monitoring this stuff? And it'll be like agencies, like who's doing this and what, and it literally, they went down this whole rabbit trail of asking AI like questions about what nefarious things AI is being used for. And it's actually interesting if it's real. I mean, then you have to go like, is this all? Yeah. Is the programming telling us the truth?
It feels like it's like a very advanced version of Google right now, but
that can also write for you, which is.
But yeah,
we talked to Hardy about this last week. We asked him like, dude, how scary is the music industry now that AI can create songs and write songs?
Well, and you asked for your buddy Chat
Claude, the old boy.
Yeah, asked about falsified near-death experiences. That's really troubling to me.
Yeah.
As I've been researching, it's really clear. Like, in fact, I think somebody is going like, I think it's someone who is like so turned off from Christians, but knew quite a bit, maybe raised in the church and got burned or something like that. And they're like, I am going to make a fortune off these stupid people. Watch this.
And muddies the waters.
Because they're basically prompting AI with near-death experience stuff and then things that would get your attention.
Right.
Like what Jesus said about masturbation, right? In a near-death experience. Put all that together. And then it does. And the way I discovered it is when I've been researching for a book I'm writing right now, I found a story like, okay, that's perfect, right? And so I'm trying to find her.
We're trying to source the person.
Source it.
Yeah.
And then I find 7 other channels she's on, but they're all red with just B-roll behind it. It's not real. And it's getting scary, yeah.
This is a great way to roll in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, we are rolling.
We are rolling.
Oh,
we are rolling. Yeah.
No, this is good though.
All
but
right.
we'll get to that, I think. But because I think that's interesting as well. Like, because to me, it's the deception thing. It's always like, I feel like the darkness and Satan, demonic forces, it's like what's packaged to us is always like 2 lies and a truth.
Exactly.
So there's enough of it.
The best lie is 90% true.
Right. There's enough to be like, this is palatable. I can believe this, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
It's ultimately like, especially if NDEs are pointing, which we talked about in our last episode, if it's pointing to God, the Bible, to Jesus.
That's reality, yeah.
Then wouldn't the concerted effort be to discredit, to muddy the waters, to make it too far to find the truth within all that, because the rest of the world will say is universalism. It's like, all roads lead here. It doesn't matter what your religion is, or there's nothing. This religion is just a construct of man.
Come a long way since this.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Like to leave some message.
I remember this.
Yeah, dude, my grandma had one of those. So she passed away, she used it.
We used. This is the pinnacle of human technology and morality.
I just did a friend's father's memorial service.
Yeah.
And he was like my best friend growing up. And all of a sudden it hit me as I was doing it. 713-497-8305.
Don't call that people.
That was
is that Orange County?
The house is gone now.
Yeah.
That was his number.
Yeah.
I don't know my son or daughter's cell phone number.
Is 714 Orange County?
713 is Houston.
Oh, 713.
But
That's Orange County.
But I still remember that because you had to call it.
714 is?
And now I have what?
Dan's like 714 is Orange County. All right.
You got it.
Yeah. Still in there. Yeah, but dude, those
isn't that wild though?
Like I know my grandmother's and grandfather's phone number. And
but
my
I don't know my
growing
son
up.
or daughter's number. Okay, so on my this is really random. We should get going.
Yeah.
On my way here, so my wife and I were talking about how we're so dependent on phones, on cell phones. Like, what if all power went out? Like, we wouldn't know how to do.
We have a
jack.
Nerf ball now, though.
What?
So we have a brand new Nerf ball.
We could throw the Nerf ball around.
Well, that would be fun.
We could play some board games, John. Yeah, but to your point though.
So my cell phone goes out.
Yeah.
And I got lost. I literally
didn't know where you were.
I couldn't. Yeah, because I didn't have a map.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it to reboot.
And you were just in your backyard.
I was in my own city.
I couldn't figure out the way back into the house.
I couldn't get back in the house. Where am I?
But these themes, though,
it's that bad.
But these themes are showing up though in entertainment that is not funny. It's like the 0 Day film that was on Netflix with De Niro.
So be careful.
And like the Obama's film, which is like basically the whole grid goes down.
Yeah.
And Tesla's like stop self-driving and create wrecks, and no one has any communication. And this is getting dripped out into sort of the next level of doomsday films. Because when we were, 10 years ago, it was like natural disaster stuff. It was 2012. This is maybe 20 years ago. It was 2012. It was asteroid hits. But now it's like your tech goes down. The grid goes down.
Yeah.
Everybody goes, it's Homestead, like which
get them on the grid.
Yeah, which is the whole like,
and
how do you survive if it all goes down? And then we look at all these billionaires are building bunkers. That's a whole other show we could do on that. But
not with me.
Yeah, not with me.
I don't know much about that.
So here we are. Welcome back to Blurry Creatures, Part 2, follow-up interview with author John Burke. Get into some of the sort of the harder questions that we sort of scratched the surface on our first episode with you. But last time we covered near-death experiences, heaven descriptions, kind of just like a broad brush of like what you wrote about, and there's thousands of stories that you've accounted for to kind of piece together sort of this afterlife experience. But what we do often when we bring somebody back on the show is we kind of go deeper into that discussion. So I think today we can cover themes of God, hell, and spiritual bodies, 2.0 and 3.0, and some of the things that you've sort of uncovered. I don't know if you set out to uncover these things writing.
I didn't set out to do any of this.
But, on Blurry Creatures, we're always trying to answer get better answers to these questions, because people have hauntings in their house, or they'll have all these paranormal experiences they can't explain. And we try to explain this through a biblical framework of like, okay, this is how it all makes sense as a Christian, but it would require going into some interesting places to kind of get those answers. So thanks for coming back on the show.
No, great to be here.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. Like, people ask, we're 354 episodes in, and we talked about this pre-roll. Ask like, what's your favorite episode you've done in 5 years? And I answer with yours. So episode 316, if you haven't listened, Nate said this is gonna be a deeper dive. That is Where We Go When We Die. And John Burke, you've 30 years doing this. You've been on some of the biggest shows now in the world. You were on Sean Ryan, for example, twice. I know you were on with Lee Strobel, was also on our show, a friend of our show as well. And
he's a good friend.
We kind of talked about what people experience when they go to heaven, and there's some amazing stories and all that. And if you haven't listened, go back. That'll be your homework or prerequisite for this show. We did talk about hell once last episode. It was a story of an atheist in, I believe it was France, who had this experience dying, and then the orderlies were calling him out of his bed and all the way down, and then he's dragging down into hell.
Howard Storm.
Yeah, and that's as much as we really talked about that issue. And I would love to start there and dive in. So
because this is a hotly debated topic in Christianity. Like, what is hell? Does it exist? Where do you start? How do you? People ask you these questions, because I'm sure they ask you all the time on planes or friends.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like as I said in the first time we did this, I didn't intend to go into any of this.
Yeah.
It was an accident. It all started for me when I was still an agnostic. And I studied engineering, so I have a very analytical, like, how do you know? How does it fit? Prove it kind of brain. And I'd concluded that Jesus was just probably a good man-made legend.
Yeah.
God, you just couldn't know. there's no evidence. So as an agnostic.
You know, over the years, we've heard so many stories, Luke. People out in the woods, they see something unexpected. They go to snap a photo. Phone goes blurry. Phone cuts out. Something happens with the technology.
That's why we have a show, Nate.
Yeah.
Blurry creatures.
That's right.
Out of focus monsters.
That's right. If the phones work perfectly, then we probably wouldn't have a show. But if you want your phone to work perfectly and get that great service, switch over to Mint Mobile Premium Wireless, starting at just $15 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. And you can do everything online.
Stop overpaying for wireless, Nate. Like, the setup is fast and easy. It only takes a few minutes, and seriously, anyone can do it. The coverage is the same as the big guys.
That's right.
And all for way less than you're paying now.
Setup is easy and fast and incredibly simple to do. It only takes a few minutes. And I know you guys are out there wondering, can I bring my contacts over? You can. And the only thing that stays elusive and hidden, not those fees, just Bigfoot.
That's right. So ditch overpriced wireless and unexpected overages and hidden fees, and plans start at $15 a month at Mint. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone, bring your own phone number, along with all those existing contacts, even Dogman. You want to call him, you can bring that contact over.
That's right. You ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/blurry. That's mintmobile.com/blurry. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes, fees, extra. See mintmobile.com for details.
And my dad was dying of cancer when someone gave him the very first research that coined the term near-death experience. So it was the very first. And he was on hospice. So someone gave it to him. I saw it on his bedside table. I read it in one night. And I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe this is the evidence I've been demanding because of how many, when they clinically die. So we're talking no heartbeat, no brain waves.
Yeah.
Right.
And yet they're resuscitated either by modern medicine or just they can't explain how, but they come back. And consistently they're talking about they were more alive than they've ever been, in a place more real than this has ever felt. And then they're talking about this God of light who is love, and many of them seeing Jesus. So for me, that was like, dang, I better be more open.
Yeah.
And so I started reading and studying the Bible, and then came to faith for other reasons.
Became a pastor. Did that for a very long time.
Well, yeah. And then I left engineering years later, and I became a pastor and started a church for skeptics, which turns out there's a lot of them in Austin.
Oh, we know.
Yeah. And but the point of that is so over the last, it's been more like 40 years. I've studied and interviewed close to 1,500 people all around the world, from all around the world, tracing these commonalities. And Imagine Heaven, I trace about 40 of the commonalities that they are consistently describing this journey into the life beyond. But one study showed that 23% of people who came forward talking about a near-death experience talked about a hellish experience. Now that was actually a long time ago. And again, I think we talked about this in the first, but people are very reticent to even come forward and talk about it because it's another dimensional experience of life.
Right.
So how do you explain other dimensional experiences in our limited 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time when there's more than that?
Well, it kind of feels like when you read Revelation, it's like I think John's trying to do that. Like
Well, it is. And what these people say completely correlates.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I have interviewed people from all religious backgrounds who describe the same holy city of God just like John did in Revelation, which we can get into later.
Yeah,
But
it's like it's like when the Super Nintendo comes out. You know? It's way better than the original.
It's way better.
So
Then
I mean, how
64
do you
comes out with
explain that to
Bond,
people though? Because I think that's a lot of what people just throw out those terms all the time on our show. Dimensional, like Bigfoot, super interdimensional. What does that mean to you?
Well, the way I think about it, and I've used this analogy with people I've interviewed who've had near-death experiences, and they say, yes, that's exactly what it's like. So imagine, we're living a 3-dimensional experience, right? We have forward and back, side to side, up and down, three dimensions spatially. The 4th dimension is time, right? So But what if we were living this experience on a flat, two-dimensional black and white painting on this wall? Okay, just imagine.
It's a flatland experiment, right?
It's flatland.
Yeah.
So we can go up and down and side to side. We don't even conceive of in or out.
Right.
And yet it's there, but they can't even conceive of it. All right, now death is when your soul separates from this dimensional reality. So imagine at death, your two-dimensional self is peeled off that and now brought into this three-dimensional reality, and you have a greater experience of reality.
Yeah.
You still experience your two-dimensional self expanded, new colors, new experiences, and then you're pressed back, you're revived in a two-dimensional world, and you have to explain 3 dimensions of color in black and white two-dimensional words.
That's kind of what I remember from our first episode, John, is you're talking about people talking about the city of God, and like the stones are made of light and all the colors, and they're trying to describe the way that even like simple things like a stone that we all can have an idea, anybody here,
but it's tangible too.
Yes,
you can touch it. It's so it's not. So I guess the point is, they struggle for words, and sometimes it feels weird what they're trying to say because it doesn't completely make sense. Just like trying to describe a third dimension in two-dimensional words,
like an upgraded, better version of life on Earth.
Well, what they say is that is the real life. This is more like the shadow.
Okay, so this is more like an incubator for that.
And interestingly, both of the good and of the bad.
Right.
So let's talk about the bad. Like what have you pieced together on like the theme of hell, and like what does that look like? Where do we go?
So like I said, in one study, 23% had hellish near-death experiences. In the more recent 2019 European Academy of Neurology study of 35 countries, they found about 1 out of 5, or about 5%, 1 out of 20 people who had clinically died or been close to death had a near-death experience. And they said more like 50% talked about hellish experiences. Now, I think that's, they're including like drug trip kind of things that I think is more not necessarily clinical death, but I still think we don't know the percentage. But I've interviewed a lot of them, and they talk about varying, I guess, places, levels. I don't know what you would call it. Howard Storm, who we talked about in episode 1, he was an atheist who at first he didn't know he was dead,
right?
Because he felt so alive. So no matter where you're going, no matter which direction you're going, you feel super alive. Not 5 senses, more like 50 senses. And so it is a heightened experience of how bad things can be as well. And so he's deceived by these people that he think are the hospital staff trying to help him. He needed surgery. And he's like, I need surgery. And they're like, oh, we know all about you. Come. Don't you want to get better? Come with us.
Right.
But they deceive him, like you said, and they lead him in this, what he said was blacker than black darkness. And then they turn on him and maul him.
Wow.
That's one experience. Others talk about like a void. So like this guy, Gary, he had a car accident in the snow, ran off a bank into a freezing cold river. And he's up above his body watching people come and try to, they're stopping the cars and they're trying to figure out how to help him, and they're praying for him, they're thinking about him. And he said he's feeling this concern and care and love and compassion from these people. And then suddenly it was connected to the source of all that. This is the way he described it. And it scared him. It was like, no, like, I don't want that. I don't want to be that vulnerable. And he said no. So he knew this was the source of all love, all this compassion, all this care and concern. And he says no. And he said, boom, he shot out into what he said. And I don't know, is it like outer space? But in another dimension of, I don't know. But it was a void. And this is a commonality of some near-death experiencers of this void. And it's just like, it's just nothing. It's just blackness, no sound, no nothing. And
but he's cognizant of this. He can,
it started to drive him crazy.
Because no sound.
Terrified. There's just nothing. Nothing.
Oh.
And so he comes back. Others have had that same experience of that void. Some have had an experience of what I would call hell on earth. Dr. George Ritchie was actually one of the very first reported near-death experiences in our modern medical age. In fact, he actually was a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia who Dr. Moody first heard from, that got him asking his students, and that's how he wrote that first book that I read.
Okay. Yeah.
So Dr. George Ritchie, he's in the Army. This is like 1945. He gets double pneumonia. He dies. And at first he doesn't know he's dead either.
Right.
And he's like traveling, trying to get to medical school because he was supposed to catch a train to medical school. So which I don't understand that completely.
Right.
Like, how do you not know?
Right.
Like, you're flying across the land. That's not normal.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like a dream.
Well, but it's not. That's what they say.
Yeah.
It's hyper vivid.
Yeah.
It's hyper real.
But in your dreams, you're doing things you would never do in real life, and you don't ever stop to think, this is a dream, because this doesn't happen. I can't do these things in normal life. So there's just that switch where you believe the dream. You believe what's happening in the dream. You believe you're a superhero all of a sudden, all those things.
Yeah. But the difference here is, like, he ends up in this place somewhere across the Mississippi River at a store that has a Pabst Blue Ribbon sign outside. And he's trying to get someone's attention because he's trying to figure out, how do I get to where I'm trying to go? And then he realizes he's dead because he goes right through him.
Do you think
later he is traveling across the United States and starts to recognize these same things and goes and finds that place with the Pabst Blue Ribbon sign?
Really?
So he really went there.
We're always looking at ancient history and the weird stuff. Some people say ancient civilizations had advanced technology, Luke, maybe even fabrics that we still can't reproduce today. But here's the good news. You don't need to find a lost city to find luxurious items anymore.
No, you can go to Quinn's, and they deliver every time with wardrobe staples that are carried through the season. It's getting cold out there, people, in some places in the country. We're not Bigfoot. We can't just grow our hair out a little longer. We need to bundle up. And for those fall staples that you actually want to wear on repeat,
that's right,
like 100% Mongolian cashmere from just $60, classic fit denim, and real leather and wool outerwear that looks sharp and holds up, Quinn's is the place to find all the things.
It brings you those high quality essentials without the middleman prices, Luke. That's the cool thing, without this mystery markup. So if you like those timeless things, not giant bones or old maps, but you want a sweet sweater that'll last longer than the Smithsonian's archives.
That's right. And, I found some great things there, including my son and I, Jack, we got matching flow knit hoodies. Nate, you also got one of those.
I did.
It's high quality. We're talking about premium quality at half the cost of similar brands. It's really like a go-to across the board. We're talking everything from bedding, bath, cookware, travel accessories, and all of your fall and winter staples. You can get it all at Quinn's. Layer up this fall with pieces that feel as good as they look. Go to quinns.com/blurry for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. And now if you're Canadian, you can get it too. That's QUINCE.com/blurry. Get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quinns.com/blurry.
So,
but here's the other side of it. So then he comes back to Camp Barkley in Texas, where he was assigned, and he's like, he sees his body. He goes to find his body because he realized, I'm dead. I got to go back.
Yeah,
and he couldn't go back. He sees his body. He realizes he's dead, and then this man of light, brilliant man of light, appears, who he knows is Jesus. He recognizes you're in the presence of the Son of God. It's a long experience. I write about it in Imagine Heaven, but one of the things Jesus shows him, he shows him this vision of hell on earth before he takes him and shows him a heavenly vision or a heavenly place. And he's taking him across, it's like earth, to these different scenes. But what he's showing them are these people who are essentially imprisoned to their own devices, to their own earthly idols. So one's an alcoholic in a bar and he keeps trying to snatch a drink, but he goes right through it. So it's like
a loop?
Huh?
Like a loop?
Or just like you can't
a loop.
No, it's not like a loop.
Like he's like an unsatiable.
He's jonesing for a fix.
But he's dead?
But he's dead.
Okay.
But the people he's around aren't, and he's
so he's still there.
But see, time and space doesn't work the same way on the other side. So that's the tricky part about it.
Is he like a ghost?
I guess you would call it that.
Because this is hard for Christians, the ghost thing.
I know.
There's so many ghost stories, and we just assume that's impossible because that person can't be trapped in some sort of in-between world, some sort of not here but not there.
Well,
that's
and what George Ritchie said, I mean, he saw, I mean, this is kind of bizarre, but I mean, he saw a mother following her son, badgering him, still trying to control him and get him to do what she wanted. She was dead too. Now, interestingly, this guy Kyle, who he's a pastor today, but he was a college student. He was an alcoholic, and he actually died of alcohol poisoning. And he also has a hellish experience, and he's going down these levels, and he gets to this kind of the first level, is what he called it, where all these people, and they're looking, it was like a hospital scene, but they're looking for drugs. They're looking for alcohol. They're looking for something to satiate the insatiable craving that I guess was their idol on earth. So he had the same experience.
That's reminds me
like Pleasure Island and like Pinocchio, right? Where you go to this place and it's like all these people are chasing their vices, and and even in that weird. I remember watching as a kid. That's terrifying, and it's this terrifying place of like, people trying to satiate their vice, and in this case, they don't.
Well, I think that's the stories we hear about, like demonic possessions. They're a disembodied spirit. They're stuck out of a body. They want to get back in a body and try to feel that experience again, which is why they possess people.
Yeah,
because there's sort of that. They're kind of trapped in this. They're not dead, but they're not alive. They're kind of, so that if they're in a body, they feel alive again. They can sort of satiate those vices, maybe. Interesting.
Are you talking about like an angelic, demonic,
like a demon?
A demon, from our understanding, is the dead Nephilim. Spirits of the giants. Yeah, and they had a body at one point, lived a life, but then they inhabit people to feel, because
experience that again.
The disembodied part is the torture. So they
can't eat, they can't drink.
Yeah, they can't do anything. Kind of like
but they still are hungry, thirsty.
And Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're like.
Yeah,
that kind of whole, people can relate to that they're not dead, but they're sort of cursed to like wander and feel that forever. But it sounds like humans kind of go through the same experience.
Well, I mean, again, I'm just reporting what I've consistently heard.
I want to let's go through the gamut, and then we'll talk about like maybe we can talk about, because you're an analytical guy, the commonalities perhaps, and what to take from this, right? Because you don't necessarily want to build your theology on people's experiences. However, like these are verifiable, real experiences, and we have to take that and try to see how does this all make sense.
Well, yeah, I think they're testimonies,
right.
So I don't believe everything every near-death experiencer says. I think some of them are whacked,
right? Yeah.
And some of them, they're not. They're sincere, and they're reporting something accurate and consistent, but they interpret it in a different way.
Because we're all different people.
Because we all have an interpretation, but their interpretations don't all align. And so I have a whole case I make in my second book, Imagine the God of Heaven, for why we've got to use Scripture to interpret near-death experiences, not the other way around. Because they all come back.
Right.
So this is not, I do not believe near-death experiences are crossing over into either eternal life or eternal death. I think it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I think that's really critical because I think that's also why they still have a choice. They can still cry out to God and he rescues them. I mean, most of the people I know that I've interviewed from these hellish experiences, they're pastors today.
Yeah. Right.
Because they cried out to God and they found he rescued them and they discovered, oh, it was Jesus.
But there's no easy answer. There's no easy answer. I think when we ask you what is hell, you kind of have to start back here and kind of work your way through of like, I mean, the Bible doesn't really give you an easy answer either. It seems like there's layers.
Well, and so some of the things that, the Bible talks about near-death experiencers experience.
Yeah.
The outer darkness that Jesus talked about where there's wailing and gnashing of teeth. Well, I mean, that's what George Ritchie saw as well on this plane of human existence. So all around us. And there was, he saw people like in this battle for control.
Yeah.
Like, and this is what Howard Storm told me. He said, it's victim or victimizer. So you either get victimized or you become the victimizer.
Sounds like prison.
It's like the worst prison. He said that. It's like the worst prison scene you can imagine. And here's the other bizarre thing, since we're going bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, we're even talking being raped.
In the hell on earth situation?
Yeah, and like the worst possible men and women. So that's where Howard, he's said to me, because I've interviewed him many times, I'll push him, kind of like you guys are going to push me, right?
Yeah.
Like, was it like, and he's like, you know what? I had PTSD from this. I can't go any farther. Because it's real.
Yeah, because it validates the
more
experience.
Real than this. So I explain something more real than this, but that's what they said.
Have you had anybody talk about that outer darkness, experiencing that particular part of what Jesus talks about, you said, and that description of?
Yeah. So is the outer darkness like what Howard experienced? So it's some plane of the earth going into this place of darkness.
Yeah.
I don't know. My friend Paul Ojeda, he was a cocaine addict. He and his stripper girlfriend were involved with cartels and all kinds of dealing, and he overdosed on cocaine. He said, instantly, I was dropping through this blacker than black darkness, like just free falling, and I was sober. And he said, this was real. And I was like, what happened? And he knew I died and I'm going to hell. And he's like, wait, there's been a mistake. Like, I'm a good guy. Like, I've never killed anybody. Like, I'm nice to people. And the more he justified, the faster he dropped.
Yeah.
And then he gets to the end of himself and he just cries out, God, help me. And he doesn't stop dropping, but he said this presence is right there with him. Peace comes over him and he hears in his thoughts. He knew this was the Lord. And he said the thought in his head, but was communication. It's kind of how communication happens on the other side. Paul, what have you done with the life I gave you? And he's thinking like, oh, dang, I better get this right. How do I answer? This is but before he could answer, it's like, boom, his whole life.
Like a life review.
His whole life review. And the life reviews are different.
Right.
But they're the same. So he's experiencing every moment and scene of his life and everything about it, but instantly. But even instantly, what's instant when time is multidimensional, right?
Yeah.
But he's seen the whole thing, the good and the bad, and he realizes, I deserve this. I chose this. But he says to the Lord, Lord, if you give me a chance, I will serve you. I'll tell everybody. And boom, he's back. Now, some people will go like, well, Lazarus asked that, and he said like, no. Right. I don't know what to make of that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Paul, and I know he he still has a business as a master plumber, and yet just on the side, he has led so many people to faith in Jesus, because he came back and he told his girlfriend, he said, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to find the God who just saved me.
Wow.
Now she's his wife, and they have the largest Hispanic church in Austin. Does it on the side.
That's amazing.
But he does it because it's real, and he doesn't want anybody to go where he was headed.
Right.
But it was the love of God that motivates him.
That's the transformative part of
The
it.
transformative part was how wonderful God is. And here's another commonality of the hellish experience. He said the worst part of it is this pulling away from God. Like, you're pulling away from the very source of love and life and light and everything good. We don't realize that here, but there you realize it. And it's just this hopelessness.
Because we're not separated from him here. Yeah.
It's kind of like a human being, experiencing seasons. It's like the summertime, the sun's shining on us, and then it feels like the sun gets a little bit further. We get a little cold. We get winter coming. We kind of experience that separation from everything dies, right? And is that our seasons in nature sort of a little bit of a trying to get the human being to think about?
Oh, I think God sowed clues everywhere into life.
Okay. Everything's sort of hidden, what's to come.
I think these near-death experiences help us see so many truths of the scriptures in a more vivid light, in brighter color instead of black and white, but also helps answer a lot of questions.
And you get more questions. I think that's the reason.
Well, there are always more questions.
We started this because I think that I was the kid in church that asked too many questions, right?
Yeah, me too. That's why I left.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it really was. I was like, hey, nobody can answer my questions. This isn't real.
Yeah.
I'm gone. Yeah. And I just went partying.
But it sounds like there is a whole framework of in between, sort of an area in between. Obviously, you have beings showing up that are light beings trying to deceive you to go the wrong direction after you're kind of passed or passing. You have that tunnel protection you were talking about. There seems to be a little bit of and what we've learned on our show is there are no easy answers. It seems like there's a little bit more of a complicated, I think we think as Christians, it's just we die and we're boom or boom, one of two places. It seems like you're describing, or people are describing, a little nuance there of.
Well, look, I mean, and this is one of the things that I think turns people off many times of Christians, is because we sometimes assume that, and I do believe that God has given us his truth in Scripture, and all we need to know him and love him and follow him.
Yeah.
I don't think we don't need near-death experiences for that. Yeah. But we also don't need science. But science has elucidated a lot.
Yeah.
We used to think we were the center of the universe and the sun went around us, right?
Yeah.
And we found out, no, that's not true. And I think there are things that Scripture says that these other things that God allows to be revealed can elucidate, can make clearer. And I think sometimes Christians make it well, because we have the truth of the Scriptures, therefore we have all truth.
Yeah.
And that's not what the Bible says.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 29:29.
Yeah.
The revealed things belong to us and our sons and daughters so that we can, we can know God and follow him. But the mysterion, the mysteries of God belong to God.
Yeah.
And so they're mysteries.
That's what's the glory of God to conceal a thing in the
and
glory of kings to
and I believe, he's revealing more and more and more, letting us experience but we have to, be wise too.
So if you could draw a map of this part of the stories,
hell,
if you could create, because there's the Hebrew cosmology that's there's Sheol, and then there's the abyss, and then there's Tartarus. They seem to the ancients seem to have levels of this stuff. They had a more robust understanding.
The prison, and under the prison is where it's where the bad angels end up. From Gen 6.
But
for example.
or like Peter and Peter.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? He's preaching to they're in chains and they're in Tartarus, which is like below the prison.
So that see, here's the problem. I had a conversation with the Uber driver on the way over here, and now I'm like, wait, did I tell you guys that, or did I tell the Uber driver?
I love it. You're telling everybody. That's what I see. That's the beginning of the episode. I assumed you're having these conversations with everyone. What do you do? That's a loaded question. You know,
we had an awesome conversation.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
great.
Did I tell you about the Jewish woman who? No, okay, that was the Uber driver.
Yeah.
So this Jewish woman that is in the hell chapter in Imagine Heaven. She dies. She's looking. It was a car crash. She has 2 young kids in the car. She's out above the snowy accident. She's looking, and she said, "There was Jesus with me, and he looked like you'd think it was Jesus, but I knew he was Jesus, and he held my hand, and I felt an acceptance and a love from him. I never wanted to leave. Like I was home. This was all I needed." But he led her to this place where she saw beings that were people or angels. She didn't know how to describe it, that were chained in darkness. And then she sees people in agony, and he made her go there by herself. And then she comes back, and then she said, "I knew I had a choice whether to stay or go back to my body. And I knew he wanted me to go back because if I stayed, I would be one of those suffering people." So she chooses to go back. But the bizarre thing is then she said, "But I don't know what to make of that because I don't believe in Jesus." Now I have another Jewish friend who...
how do you not?
Did we talk about Heidi in the first episode?
I don't think so.
Oh, her story's so cool. We need to get to it when we talk about God. But the main thing is she too is there with Jesus.
Okay.
But she recognizes that he's the God she had always prayed to, even though she didn't know. But there's only one God.
Yeah.
But she's like Orthodox or traditional Judaism, right? So they're rejecting
it's a little more confusing than that. So her father was an atheist, but they were Jewish.
Okay.
And her father told her every night, "There is no God. Your life is worthless. Jesus Christ is the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on mankind." But he was also abusive. Yeah. And so she always believed in God and prayed to God every night and felt like even like as a little girl, 6 and 8, she's being abused stuff. And she would pray and felt like the Lord was there with her, kind of giving her peace and helping her go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then she sees him, but he's Jesus.
Yeah.
And in her life review, he shows her when she's that little girl praying, and she sees he's by her bed. So she saw it all as real.
So
we're jumping, but back to hell.
Well, I'm just trying to piece together like a visual here. So you have...
Well, let me give you a couple more data points.
All right.
So others also talk about so there's the falling in the darkness. There's kind of the earth plane where there's this battle going on, or this domination. But then others talk about like the pit, and they even call it that. And fire.
Looked like a fire.
So we talked about Santosh's story in the first episode, I think.
Is he the narrow gate? The Indian man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's a Hindu manufacturing engineer, never read the Bible. He thought when you die, maybe you come back as another life form. So that's not what happened.
As a cow, a lot of them, right?
It's not what happened.
Beef, yeah.
He said this divine, brilliant light comes. I fell in love with this light because I knew it was protecting me, for me, loved me, takes him. He describes the holy city of God, but then he sees what he called, he looks down and he sees, and I don't know, this gets into where are these places locally, like geographically, because I'm not sure spatial dimensions work the same way on the other side. But he sees a vision of, or the place of an abyss. He called it an abyss of darkness that I would fall into if I fell there, and there's no getting out, and at the bottom, a lake of fire.
Yes.
Again, a Hindu man who's never read the Bible.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And then he, we go into more of it on that first episode. But he then sees who he later determined was Jesus on his throne, who showed all the gates of the city. The 12 gates he saw were closed to him, but one narrow gate open. So basically what God does is sends him back with a parable.
Right. It's very Jesus-like.
Very Jesus-like. And
Yeah.
as he seeks, he finds. And
Right.
that's what I found so fascinating with so many of these stories is when they come back seeking, they find.
Wow. Do you think John had a near-death experience?
I think Paul did.
Paul?
Yeah.
I think Paul did. So remember Paul in Acts chapter 14, he's in Lystra, which is a Greek Roman city.
Yeah.
And it says the mob turns on him and stoned him to death and dragged him out of the city and left him for dead.
Mm.
Okay. And then the believers, as they're rallied around him, now stop there and think they knew how to stone people to death back then.
Right,
They,
Yeah.
And so, okay, he's good, he's dead. They
Yeah.
drag him out and leave him. And then it says he gets back up after
Yeah.
the believers rally around him. They're praying for him, I'm sure. He gets back up and goes back into the city and keeps going.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that's not like that's a miraculous comeback.
Almost like a resurrection.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's, I believe, a near-death experience because in 2 Corinthians 12, Paul's talking about himself and he says 14 years ago, right? Is he talking about 14 years ago in Lystra? Could be. I don't know. But he says 14 years ago, whether in my body or out of my body,
Yeah.
I don't know. Why didn't he know? Because we're still ourselves. We still have a body. We have a spiritual body.
Yeah.
And Paul talks a lot about that, right? And he says, I was taken up to the third heaven. I was taken up to paradise. I saw and heard things inexpressible and things no one is allowed to tell.
Mm.
Which also near-death
Yeah.
experiencers say, some things they experience there, they know when they come back was veiled. They're not allowed to tell. So all
So
these
they still
things,
remember them, but they just can't talk about
they
it.
remember that there they knew.
And then that's interesting.
But
So they don't know. They still don't know it, but they know that they know.
they can't explain. So
So it's like they have a memory, but they don't know what it is.
it's fascinating. Some of the ones who went through intense suffering on earth,
Yeah.
there understood it perfectly, saw how it all fit, had all the answers. But when they came back,
Don't remember.
it was veiled.
So you're saying near-death experiences could have shaped some of the biblical writings?
Well,
Maybe. Because some of the stuff you're like, how do they know this?
Okay,
How do they
look,
write
so-
this down?
so-
Well, we also know that people are taken to heaven. You've
got
Elijah,
Isaiah.
Isaiah,
right?
Elijah,
and
Enoch.
this is a lot of people will quote one-off scriptures to me like, no one has
seen the Father.
seen the Father, right?
Yeah.
And so these near-death experiencers, they're liars. They claim they've seen the Father on his throne and all that. Well, wait a second. When Jesus said that, he knew Isaiah and Isaiah 6, where Isaiah says, I was taken up and I saw the Almighty on his throne,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter
Yeah.
12,
Yeah.
where he sees God on his throne and then the Son of Man, so he knew all these things.
Yeah.
I don't know, are those near-death experiences? Are those translations? Are those visions?
Dreams, visions. Yeah.
I don't know. But what they're describing is correlating with what I'm finding is commonly reported among near-death experiencers.
I want to talk about correlation real quick because we've got these descriptions of hell, and you've got a void. You have this hellscape on earth where people are chasing vices and they're unable to be satiated. We have outer darkness, abyss, pit, lake of fire, places where, and perhaps the hellscape is where people are being victimized by either other people or beings.
Yeah, it sounds like if you get convicted in Kentucky, like you commit a crime, but you have to serve your, time in Folsom Prison, you got to get on a train, go across, and you have to get there. You have to travel someplace. Sounds like these people are moving to and from, going somewhere. Things are.
I think it's a vast world apart from God.
Hmm.
So I'll give you one other that's pretty freaky that I haven't figured out yet, and I don't know what to make of it. It's just a working theory right now. Yeah. But like Yen Mickelson was a Buddhist who committed suicide, but as she had heard about God, she had heard about Jesus, but her parents had always told her, well, Jesus is the American God. We worship our ancestors, and she's from Laos. And but she was here in the States, and she became very depressed and just was like, wanted to end her life. And before she did, she was like, God, people tell me you're real, but I don't even know if you're real. And even if you are, I'd rather go to hell than experience this hell on earth. Okay, so then she is committing suicide, and she experiences leaving her body and like a cage coming up and down around her. And she starts to realize, oh my gosh, it's all real. I was wrong. And she's panicked, trying to reverse it, trying to get back. And she does, basically. And she's able to call her therapist, who then sends 911. And on the way to the hospital, she has a conversation with God, and she says, I'm so sorry. I don't want to go there. I was wrong. It's not like, that's way worse. But she then has another death experience, and she finds herself then dropping, and she knew, now I'm going there. Now, here's the weird thing. She said, I was going through the layers of the earth. And it was like I could see them. And she said, I learned this in school. These are the... but she's falling at a rapid pace in this darkness, but she also is aware she's going through the layers of the earth. And then comes to this place that is, she described as a pit of darkness, but she also saw flames and fire, but it didn't light the darkness. And that was always something that confused me. Like, honestly, even as a pastor, there were so many things that I would have said as, well, that's metaphor. That's not literal.
Right.
That's not, I would have said hell is not fire and darkness. You can't have the same.
Right.
So that's
in our reality,
we don't know what it is, but it's a metaphor. Until I heard so many near-death experiencers say, no, it's both. So then I've had several people talk about the falling through the earth. Even Sebastian Junger, the war correspondent, he was on Joe Rogan talking about his near-death experience, and he gets sucked down through the mattress, and he's dropping in this darkness, straight down.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, is the reason it's described as both this fire and darkness that, again, it is like a fifth dimensional experience that is here in the realm of the earth, but not limited physically to our three dimensions.
In our dimensions.
Yeah.
And does that make sense of what it says that Satan was cast to the earth? And when Jesus says the ruler of this world is coming, right before his crucifixion, right? So walk in the light before it's all dark, right? And he conquered, he conquered the ruler of this world. But so all that makes me wonder, right? Is like, and I think that's part of the Hebrew mindset, right? The first heavens were the stars in the sky. Yeah. In like the Old Testament, New Testament mindset. The third heaven, like Paul talked about that he went to, is like where God reigns, the holy city of God. It's what we would technically call heaven. Right. But the second heavens is the spiritual realm all around the earth or of the earth.
Yeah. And beyond.
Which I was going to say also, I think I told you guys, I started to realize that I think these tunnels, these portals that open up, when people leave their body and then they travel to this place that we would call heaven.
Third heaven, beauty, exquisite beauty, the city of God, this, all that.
started to realize that I think they are protection, because some even in that journey, in that tunnel, then were actually first shown a heavenly vision, but then exited out of it into a hellish vision. And some even see and hear those saying, come with us. Don't go there. Come with us.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's but I mean, there've been so many testimonies of it. And what's so amazing to me is how many come back and, like I said, they become followers of Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Because usually they cry out to him and he rescues them.
Well, I think that's sort of what we learn on the show is like the Bible is more alive, not more allegorical or more metaphor. It's actually like a truth beyond a truth. Like there's a way to read stories like Eden. Like there could have been an actual tree of life, but it could have existed in one of these spaces that you're talking about.
Well, there are trees of life.
Yeah.
That grow by the river that people who've had near-death experiences have seen. And it's fascinating. I mean, there's so many like tendrils of connection and correlation.
Yeah.
So for instance, weird tangent, but I've interviewed many people who actually were able to go into that river of life, right? And they found all these new properties, like so they could breathe underwater. Yeah. They didn't need to breathe, but they were thinking they had to breathe, but they didn't have to breathe.
Okay.
We don't have to breathe, right?
Yeah.
God's light is the life that fills everything. And so you get all these new experiences. But they also said, and this is like Rebecca Springer, she was 1890s near-death experience, but she wrote the same things. And she's writing, going into this river, and she comes out and she's like, what? To her brother-in-law, Frank, who's showing her around, he's like, what was that? And she said that it's like divine. And he said, yes, it is. And it's washing away the last effects of your earth life and preparing you for your new life.
So Mickey Robinson.
Now,
we had Mickey
now here's
Robinson
what's
on the show.
interesting.
He talked about,
So, and they talk about, so it's like these healing properties, and that they're, even though on the other side, so in heaven, our physical bodies are healed. So like Don Piper, who's a pastor I interviewed, he sees his grandfather come in, his grandfather hugs him, and he looks at his hands, and he was a lumberjack, so he didn't have a bunch of digits on his fingers, but now he does.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So, but interestingly, it appears the soul still needs some healing. And they experience this in that river of life, but growing next to the river of life are these, these trees of life.
Yeah.
And it says in Revelation 21, the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. So it's all there.
Yeah.
So like the trees are fed by the river that is of the Spirit of God. And there's still some kind of soul healing that takes place on the other side.
Well, I love it because I think that, a lot of modern Christians read the story of Eden as like an allegorical story that there's a creation story in every single culture. And so Christians are kind of dumb or stupid to read it literally. Mm-hmm. But it seems as though Eden is like an overlap of heaven and earth. So all the sort of the supernatural construction and the elements that you're talking about could have been present there, which makes it sound like a fantasy novel. But it isn't a fantasy.
This whole thing sounds like a fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I mean,
from an earth, like just a typical modern caveman human brain, we read the Eden story as fantasy. It didn't exist. It's not true. But what you're saying says there could have been overlap between these dimensional gates, where it feels like what they're describing is actually a place. You can go there. You can't eat from the tree of knowledge. You can't eat from the tree of life.
Not anymore.
You couldn't. After a certain point, but Adam and Eve could.
They could.
Yeah. It existed. It's a place. It was somewhere.
And so when that wall closed,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. we're back here.
There's a separation.
Yeah.
So heaven and earth are separated for a time.
Yeah.
Right? But they're going to be reunited.
Right.
But it's like the circles overlap and there's just this area in the middle, right? Like Eden is in that sort of that.
So I think so many of our fantasies, our novels, and I mean,
Lord of the Rings, C.S. Lewis.
J.R.R. Tolkien thought this, C.S. Lewis thought this. Great literary Christians have thought this too, that they're all pointing somewhere more real.
Yeah. But like Luke was saying, so there is beings that sort of try to trick you. There is maybe some people that are like stuck in chains. There's like an outer darkness. You go down and maybe you kind of trapped in. Do these people have long periods of time in these spaces where they can then cry out to God? Or is it like an instant, and then once they're dead, I mean, obviously you can't interview them because they don't come back, but are there?
So here's where near-death experiencers don't agree.
Okay.
And tie goes to Jesus in my book.
Okay. All right.
Well, so, and again, that can sound like, oh yeah, well, because you're a Christian pastor. No, actually that's why I was trying to make a case in Imagine the God of Heaven for why this God has not just started to show up, and all these things have not just started to show up in our modern medical resuscitation day.
Yeah.
It's been there all along, and he's been telling us this all along, and there are good evidential reasons to believe it's true. So your question was about, can they get out? Is that right?
Yeah, like how long are they allowed to sort of be in this in-between space? Like it seems like they are in an in-between space.
Oh, near-death experiencers.
Or in hell?
Or in hell, yeah. Like,
well, I don't know that hell is an in-between place. I mean,
it seems like they're on the outer skirts of it, kind of like looking at it and about to experience it fully, but then they don't.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Rajiv Pardee was a guy I interviewed, and I mean, this is no slouch guy. So first of all, he grew up in India, so he's Hindu, not Christian.
Yeah. Right.
But he's a chief anesthesiologist of the Bakersfield Heart Hospital. He's a smart guy, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't believe in near-death experiences at all. He had brought people back who were talking all this stuff, and he'd give them a shot of Haldol or the antipsychotic drug, just like they're crazy.
Yeah.
And then he had one. So his starts in a hellish place. He had become an opioid addict, and he had also become kind of verbally abusive to his kid. His father had been abusive to him. So there's all this stuff. And he's in this hellish place right away, and he's being tortured by these evil creatures. And I mean, it's like everything you would imagine was not real, but he's describing it. And then he starts, he said, he called it repenting. He told me, I started crying out to God, God, forgive me. He realized, that's another thing. They realize I deserve this. And he starts crying out, repenting, God, forgive me, God, forgive me. And he's rescued from it. Now, bizarrely, he too, later, he encounters this God of light who gives him a life review, love unconditional. He comes back seeking him. He's asking, who are you? And he said, the first time he said, I thought maybe this was Jesus. And later, he has another encounter with the same God of light, and he asks, who are you, Lord? And he said, out of the light steps Jesus. Looks like Jesus. And he says to him, I am Jesus, your Savior. And he drops to his knees and says, Namaste. And he actually got baptized.
Wow. So
later.
wild.
I mean, again, what I like to point out is these are not people who need to make up crazy, wild stories to make $1. They have money, they have prestige, they are risking their careers to talk about this crazy stuff. It doesn't align with their religious background. It doesn't make any sense.
I'll say it busts their paradigm too, because they're, you're looking to encounter Krishna or one of these Hindu gods. That's your faith, and they're not there. And so what does that actually profit you as you have to throw away everything to that point that you believe.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And what I like to remind people is we're not saying, oh, see, the Christian God is the right God. You guys are wrong. We're right. That's not it. It's that God is the God of all people. He's the God of all people. And what he did through Jesus was make a way to remove every barrier between every human and himself except our pride. See, and I think that's so important because he gives us free will because God is love and he created us in love for love. And you can't love without free will.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And so he has to give us the ability to say, I don't want you. I got this. And that is what hell is. Hell, I do not believe hell is like, well, you did all these things wrong, therefore you're going to be punished in all these ways.
Yeah.
No, it is punishment without a doubt, but it's not punishment for all the sins we've done. That punishment was paid for by Jesus on the cross. It's actually the consequences of saying to God, who is light and love and life and every good thing we've ever experienced, I don't need you. I got this.
I don't want it.
So where does God stay out? There's only one place. And he created it to give people who don't want him what they think they want. So that's hell. You know? And that's why it's a free-for-all.
Separation.
My will be done. That's the problem.
Well, that's Crowleyism.
It's angels, Nephilim, humans, all these creatures that have said, I don't want God's will, I want my will. Yeah. And now it's a battle of wills.
Well, that's what I mean. Aleister Crowley was the modern father of Satanism, modern Satanism. His whole thing was do what thou wilt. It's do what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
And that essentially is the worship of Satan. It's the
Burger King
self.
Too. Have it your way.
Yeah, we've had people describe on the show many times.
Satan.
We'll probably cut that. Well, Burger King will never be your sponsor.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's interesting because we've had many people, explain on the show that like Satanists don't actually believe in Satan. They just believe that they are like free to do whatever they want and be as debauched as possible. I don't know.
That's the deception.
Quote me on that, but what? Okay, so I had a question about. What do you think? Do you think these people that are near-death experience, do you believe that they are still somewhat alive or they are dead, but there's a moment, and then does God heal the body? Because some of these stories you're describing, frozen lake, car accidents, the body's dead, stoned to death in the New Testament. Like, he's dead.
Oh, yeah.
But then does God heal the person, give him a second chance? Is it like, we're going to wipe away the physical consequences of what you just went through?
So this is where I have changed my view of there is life and there's death.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because one of the commonalities of near-death experiencers, about 30% talk about coming in this journey into the afterlife to a border or a boundary. And it's represented different ways, but very clearly they knew if I cross over that, I cannot go back to earth.
Point of no return.
And then sometimes God even tells them that, like, you can come on, you can cross over here and come on with us to heaven, or you can go back. But once you cross over, you can't go back.
Yeah.
So that's why I think they still are able to cry out to God and make a temporal decision, and he rescues them because they haven't crossed over into either eternal life or eternal death.
Mm-hmm.
But my theory is once you cross over, then your choices, even choice, when we say the word choice, it implies one-dimensional linear time.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I make a choice and then I move on to the next moment, I can't go back and change that choice. So if it's a bad choice, my only hope is forgiveness or redemption.
Yeah.
Right? But if all choices and moments are happening simultaneously then in an eternal now, then, and by the way, this is the story of Scripture, right? Lucifer, the highest angel that, or the cherubim.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He wants to rise above God or to be like God. So it's that's the same sin of pride, like not your will, God, my will. And he is cast out of heaven to the realm of the earth, interestingly.
Yeah.
So that choice, there's no grace or second chance, because all that implies time, which is why I think God now creates a time capsule called Earth, a place that for a time, temporarily, he shrinks down the experience of the good, and he shrinks down, he limits the experience of the bad. You know, I think the question, like, if God is so loving and all powerful, how could he allow so much evil and suffering? What if he's not?
Yeah.
What if this is actually a very muted 1/1000th?
Yeah.
So that we who now live in the knowledge of both good and evil for a short time can experience my will be done versus God's will be done. And we can see both. We have a taste of heaven and a taste of hell, and we can choose.
Yeah, this is a near-death experience.
Well, it's we said something last time.
This whole thing is.
Well, it's an experience of both. And that's what it says. I mean, right? When we were cast out of Eden, it was that we tasted of the tree of both the knowledge of good, but we already had good.
Right.
We just got deceived into thinking there was something we didn't have.
Right.
But good was all we needed, but now we know not good. Right?
John, you said something last time that stuck with me. It was that, like, if you had to distill it all, you'd say that this life is like a test of loyalty. At the end of it, it's our loyalty to either God or to ourselves, right? And I just want to clear something up, because I know people are going to listen to this and be like, "Oh, so we can live however we want, and then we get a second shot when we die." But it sounds, the way I understand what you're saying, I want to ask you this, but it's like, is this life is our choice, right? In the sense of, like, because when we die, the NDE people, they get a shot to come back, right? But
because they, so Ecclesiastes 12 talks about, and this is Solomon, right? And in all his wisdom, or someone like him, and says, pursue God while you still can, while you're young. Don't wait until the silver cord is cut.
Yeah.
And then the body goes back to ashes and the soul goes before God.
Right.
Well, interestingly, I've interviewed near-death experiencers who said something similar. So Penny Whitbroat, who I interviewed, so she is there, and she died of anaphylactic shock. Her heart stopped. This is in a hospital,
right?
So that's the thing to note, is like many of these they're documented, hospital records, no heartbeat, 45 minutes, hour and 45 minutes. I mean,
that's a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah. And we can go into that, but like, if this is in the brain, where are those memories being stored when you have flat EEG, right?
Yeah.
So, but Penny's there with her grandmother. So she sees her grandmother. And she remembers her grandmother dead. Now Penny was a Christian, but she also struggled a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't even sure there was a heaven. She's like, that feels kind of fantastical. She's a nurse. And her grandmother's there, and she recognizes her, and she goes like, I thought you were dead. And she says, oh, no, dear, there's no death. You're either alive on earth or you're super alive here. And she says, you know this. And she said, no, I don't. And she said, yeah, you learned it in school. I said, and basically she quoted the first law of thermodynamics. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes form. He said, she said, that's God's law, borrowed by man. And then Penny says to her, so I'm dead? And she said, no, you're in a special situation. She said, you are alive here, but you're still tied to your body on earth. If you choose to go on, the silver cord will be cut and you will go on, but you still could go back. So that's very interesting.
Very interesting.
And
yeah,
I mean, even in cases of having Jesus meet, even when we say a near-death experience is either in heaven or hell, well, I interviewed an Australian professor who he's in this space, and Jesus is there with the angels, and he's getting a life review and all that. And he says, "Is this heaven?" And Jesus says, "No. We've come out to meet you. This is the place that all souls must journey on their way. And we've come out to meet you and to make sure everything is okay." And then, and so here's another interesting thing is he decides he does want to go back because he had a daughter who was disabled, and he thought, she's going to need me.
Yeah.
And Jesus respected that. And he said to the angel, "Go check the vessel." This is very fascinating.
Check the vessel.
Go check the vessel. And Dr. Perry watches the angel kind of go down, and he had had a heart attack, and he was now in an ambulance, and then come back, and he said, "It's okay." And so then he re-inhabits.
So there was some sort of checking to make sure that it's possible?
So this is a fascinating, question mark in my head, is that I think God created all of this with laws, obviously.
Sure.
But there are laws that we haven't even discovered or don't understand, and even spiritual laws, and even laws of how he works through his angelic host.
Yeah.
And they are working with him and with us. And he plays by his own rules most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is a bizarre thing.
Well, I think that's what we come across, and Luke and I have to stay in the bizarre space, because if some of these stories are true, like, it's easy for a Christian to say, none of these stories are true because of this one verse, and I can't put anything else into the bucket. But like, we hear really bizarre ghost haunting stories. A minute ago, you're talking about crossing over, and it does feel a lot like the stories that are emailed into us, or even more bizarre stuff like old ghost ships or haunted railroads. How does that work?
I don't know. What do you think?
There seems to be, like you said, the spiritual laws. It feels like almost a glitch in the matrix, where something kind of gets
everything's going way back now.
Something's
this is back a little farther,
but something is like,
I did a whole message once on the Matrix.
But it's like something gets popped out and it's like stuck, sort of. Like the spiritual mechanics might even have some kind of, every once in a while, like a soul is sort of stuck in a loop. Almost, it sounds like, because these are like trauma loops. Usually they're murdered or there's some tragedy. And it's almost like they have a moment to, and people will say, well, we helped it cross over as the language.
Move on.
And I don't know. I mean,
and I don't know either. That on those, I don't know.
Makes Christians frustrated. They get mad about that.
So if there's one thing, and there's one thing I've had to live with is tension.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because I always ask the Lord, like, why did you have me become an engineer? Like, if this is really what you wanted me to do, like, why not go to Bible college or something, It's like, And he's reminded me of things like my thermodynamics class, where I remember like sitting there all night long trying to understand how do these things all fit together. And then all of a sudden it pops and it's like, oh, I see it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much like that. I mean, shoot, look at quantum mechanics, right? The things we're discovering about light and quantum mechanics and the brain. I just interviewed a neurologist.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So a lot of these things, it's like we've got to hold it in tension sometimes.
Yeah.
Until either it makes sense, but it doesn't mean you just go both feet in, jump in.
Yeah.
I think you can know things that are true that God has revealed in Scripture and through Jesus, right?
Sure.
And you don't have to go against those to then ask questions and wonder and let there be a little tension. And I think that's sometimes Christians, it's like an all or nothing, but they're not comfortable in the tension.
Well, that's kind of what I was asking. I want to ask on that because I think this is, people may try to take from this is like, I don't have to follow Jesus here because when I die, I'll get a chance then.
No,
Right.
I don't think that's true.
Well, that's what I want to say because I think you're talking about a subset of people that have this and they come back. So they get this option sort of, but
Here's what I do think is true. And I don't know if everybody has this kind of liminal experience in death before they cross over that border or boundary into eternity. Okay. I don't know. I do think that's what Scripture is talking about when it says no one has been to heaven and come back except Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then people go like, well, then these near-death experiences are all liars. No, I think that's talking about full experience of eternity.
Yeah.
like into the city of God, like you are.
Well, and even
citizen,
then, but see, even then, people have been into the city of
but
God.
they're not like fully experiencing it in their full body.
But I don't think it's. We think of things in very spatial terms,
Right.
Yeah.
right? But think about this: if I live in Austin, we're in Nashville. If with a thought I could be in Austin, how far away is Austin?
Plane ride. Yeah.
It's not a plane ride; it's a thought.
Well, I mean, right now it is,
but it's no
yeah.
distance at all. You
Right.
see, so
Yeah.
so if movement and travel and things work differently on the other side, distance, spatial things. So I think they spatially see these places and they're real and they're testifying that they're real, and it's what you see in the Bible. But temporally they're still tied to earth.
Yeah.
And so their choices have not been eternalized. That's what I think. I take that because Jesus, Jesus taught, and he said, in the parable of, I don't know if it was a parable, theologians think it wasn't a parable of Lazarus and the rich man and Lazarus.
Yeah.
And, in that, one's in hell and one's in heaven, or in Abraham's bosom.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says there's a great divide so that you can't go to them and they can't go to you.
Right.
So when some near-death experiencers say, I think they can get out.
Yeah.
That's an interpretation. Now, maybe it's an interpretation in that what they understood is that these people had chosen this and they still have a free will. And theoretically, they could choose, and God is always like this. He's always
because they're still tied to their body.
But I'm talking about they're now seeing people in hell.
Oh, okay, I understand. Yeah.
Because I've had some near-death experiencers who have seen people in hell, and some have said there is no getting out, and some have said if they wanted to, they could. Here's the problem: is like, I think at a certain point, there's no even awareness of the ability. In other words, we devolve. We either evolve or we devolve on the other side.
So
we either become more and more of who God intended, and it's amazing.
Right.
That's the spiritual body plus, or we devolve. So you remember Howard Storm, who got dragged, deceived into hell. Well, those people who mauled him, he didn't think they were demons.
But they're people.
He said they were my kindred spirits.
So they're atheists.
Well, he said, I realized that they on earth had lived for themselves just like I had lived for myself. And so he said, if I stayed, I was going to become one of them. Who they were just, basically victimizing him for fun. It was the only fun they had.
I mean, I think I'm trying to speak to obviously engineering background, the skeptics. I mean, we can see there are fundamentally deep, more complex spiritual laws, right? And I think the ancients knew that. Like just some of the effigy mounds, the way they would bury people, and they would go back to these mounds and they would do sort of this ancient witchcraft. I think they were trying to hack some of these spiritual laws. I mean, you look like the Egyptians and some of the stuff they did, and there's like the Book of the Dead, and they knew all this. Somebody hacked into the code and tried to rewrite, or they had knowledge of it. And now we're in a modern era where we don't even necessarily understand that Jesus had to become a human being. That is a spiritual law. That God needed to become a human to save humans. That was the rule. That was the reason he became a human. And we kind of reverse engineer that a little bit. But I think on our show, we've learned like that was necessary. So there's a spiritual law of like how a human being can say, you know what I mean? Like God has to be fully in our dimension, in our space to rescue us. And I think that's the miracle that we miss.
Yeah.
We just think it's a sin situation, but there seems to be a code. There seems to be a law. There seems to be a framework, and we uncover little bits and pieces. I'm sure you're constantly dealing with that, but are you describing the code is much bigger and more expansive and harder to understand, and it's not a one story, one-off sort of, oh, when you die, it's boop or bop. You know, it's like very simple like explanations for all these things.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's very simple explanations. I mean,
but that's how generally Christians, that's the mindset.
Well, let's go. We try to, I think we did the mysteries you talked about on the top is like trying to distill that down to something that's like binary is probably very hard.
Yeah.
Like,
well, so everything is either a demon, you know what I mean? Like it's just, there's like one simple answer for everything, and you're either dead or you're alive. There's no in between. There's no like moment. There's no like calling out to God and like you're falling into the abyss. And
here's what I know from near-death experiences is God is pursuing people to the very last moment. I don't know where that is or when that is.
But how, you're 45 minutes dead on the table though. Like how long does it go?
I don't know.
This is a good segue though, because I think like
so weird.
We've been talking about hellish experiences, and then Howard Storm, Heidi, to these different people who call upon God, and he shows up. So I mean, you wrote a whole book on how people describe and experience God, and we talked about it with the Hindu guys that they're like, hey, this is not my Hindu gods. This is something different.
Yeah.
And you're an analytical guy. What can you give us data point wise about what people say and how they describe God to be? Because they're talking about Jesus coming through, like, which is people that don't believe in Jesus, Jewish people, Hindu people.
Yeah,
they experience Jesus, which has to be this massive Buddhist paradigm
Muslim
breaker.
Moms.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean that's the wild and this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know, we passed the leadership of the church we started.
Right. Now you're global, baby.
Well, because I believe that God is raising these testimonies up. Think about it. This couldn't have happened even 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, right? That
definitely not 40 years ago when there's no internet. You couldn't connect with them. You couldn't find any of these people unless they wrote a book, like you found when your dad was passing away, right? I mean,
yeah, and that was very limited research, right?
Right.
And but. You know, for the second book, Imagine the God of Heaven, I was able to interview 70 people from every continent except Antarctica. No penguins.
Some Russian scientists there.
Yeah. But people from every religious background, and they are testifying about the same God. So Bibi in Tehran has had a heart attack. She's there. She's Shiite. So she's waiting for the Prophet Ali to come and judge her. That's what they believe happens at death. And she's terrified because she thinks, you know, I'm going to go to hell. And this man, majestic, called him like a royal person, beard and a robe, but glowing of light and a scepter, comes and says, I am. And that's it. And boom, she's back in her body.
Moses.
But with a peace and a joy she's never had before. And she starts out on this search, like, who was this God? She knew it was God who said, I am. And so yeah, she discovers this is the same God who appeared as a brilliant light that never burned the bush on Mount Sinai and said, I am.
Right, Moses says, what is your name? What should I call you?
Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Yeah. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, have the light of life, you know? He even said before, Abraham longed to see my day.
Right.
And he said, and they get all mad, like, you think you're better than Abraham, or,
Right.
And he says, before Abraham was born, I am. He's doing a clear callback, to Mount Sinai. So you got Bibi in Tehran, another Muslim in Rwanda. He was an imam, so a leader,
like a high-ranking guy.
Yeah. He would debate Christians. That's what he loved to do. His name is Sweetik. He's a great guy. Fascinating story. But long story short, he gets blood cancer. His mother was a Hutu and his father was a Tutsi, and it was in the genocide in Rwanda. So it broke their family up. His mother was also worshiped the goddess Beko. It's kind of like Wiccan witchcraft, African witchcraft. Father was a Muslim imam, a sheikh. So they're doing everything they can to heal their son, and none of it worked. And the mother, in desperation, as Sweetik's about to die, goes to the Anglican church and said, I heard sometimes people are healed in the name of Jesus. Will you pray for my son? And they said, if you'll pray in the name of Jesus, we will too. And they fasted and prayed. And Sweetik starts off in what he called a slaughterhouse. That's how he described it. It was like a butchery, he said, where they, and these 3 demonic looking, or I don't even know if they're demonic. They might've been just demented people. I don't know, but they come in like with axes and
chopping off.
They're just going to tear them up to pieces. And into the room comes this man of light, white robe and a beard, and the light shoots right through Sweetik, and he sees into him with everything. And those 3 are gone. And he holds out his hands like this to him, and he has a little smile, almost like a little smile on his face, but serious too.
Right.
And he sees the holes in his wrists, like right here. And Sweetik had accidentally seen The Passion of the Christ when he got 3, accidentally, right? Accidentally. When he got 3 free movie tickets. So they're in Kirigali. And so he said, so I knew who this was because I saw the holes. And Jesus says to him, I died for mankind. You are among those I died for. Never deny it and tell it to everyone. And Sweetik then sits up and a sheet falls off of him. And all of a sudden, everybody is yelling and screaming and running. And he's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
He was at his own burial. So he sees the grave right there. They were doing the Muslim burial ceremony, and he sits up.
How long has he been dead?
He'd been dead overnight.
That's so wild.
So today he's an he's an Anglican priest, and he has had 7 attempts on his life.
I bet.
Even his father tried to kill him. Isn't that crazy? Wow. So, and these are not just stories. Like, I know these people.
Yeah.
And they're still at it.
So people encounter Jesus. He has the marks of crucifixion. He appears as just full of light, and what other attributes people describe? Because we've heard stories from our last episode, and now in this one, it's like, it sounded like almost like sometimes you get the picture of God in Revelation, which is like hair like wool and eyes like fire and white robes, and then sometimes sometimes you get Jesus and.
Well, and I think that's true. So he doesn't always appear the same. And, that's the New Testament.
Right.
Right. So he appears in his resurrection body.
The road to Emmaus.
Yeah. And he appears to the disciples and he says, like, I'm not a ghost. Touch me.
Yeah.
Hey, give me some food. And he eats fish with them and he hugs them. But then he goes right through the wall. Right. So, or he rises up in his body into the clouds and he's gone. He disappears.
Yeah.
And then on the road to Emmaus, like you said, they don't recognize him.
Didn't our hearts burn? Yeah.
But they don't recognize him until he chooses. And then all of a sudden, we did recognize him. Yeah. So there is the John Revelation 1 glorified Jesus with the eyes of fire,
and hair like wool,
and So the hair that's white like wool and the robe, it's the light. The light is so brilliant. It looks like hair like white wool. And sometimes Jesus appears like that. So to Santosh, that's what he saw. Yeah. But sometimes, so like with Heidi, so this is trippy. So Heidi said, you know, he just looked like a normal Jewish guy.
Yeah.
And she said, and he wasn't perfect. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, his nose was a little crooked. And I said, what?
The carpenter's son. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, or broken.
He was a boxer.
He still, he got pretty, go read how he was brutalized.
Yeah, exactly.
And he, for some reason, still has the scars. I think because I think they're the marks of his love. Right. I think that's why he keeps them. But so here's the fascinating thing. She texted me not too long ago. You know, they've done new research on the Shroud of Turin.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote that off a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I looked into that, you know, and they had carbon dated it, and it was 15th century.
Yeah.
Well, now
those were the pieces that they had reattached.
Well, now what they've discovered is, you know, it was in a fire in the church in Turin, and the nuns probably sewed 15th century cloth back into it, and that's what they carbon dated. Now they've taken other pieces and carbon dated it either side 100 years of the first century.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So when Jesus was alive. Now, the wild thing is, you know, we still don't know the technology that made the image from the inside out very thin. We don't have that technology today.
We can't replicate it.
We can't replicate it, but it's three-dimensional information that's in the cloth.
Right.
So they fed that into AI and shown what that person in that burial cloth looked like.
Yeah.
And he had like 300 marks on his body, like where he had been tortured.
Yeah.
But she sends me that picture, the AI rendition.
Right.
Maybe we can find it in the edit, but she sends me that, or I'll send it to you. She sends me that picture, and this is Heidi, and she says, there he is. Notice the nose.
Wow.
Check it out, because it's a little offset.
Yeah. I love that.
That's wild. So is there a different understanding of like the traditional Trinitarian view of God based on the sightings, or like God the Father and God the Son?
So I think the wilder thing is you have people like a Heidi, who again grew up Jewish with an atheist dad and an agnostic mom, believed in God, was told Jesus is a hoax, yet in her near-death experience as a 16-year-old girl, it's Jesus there with her, right? But then, and this is the thing about God, you guys, it's like God is so much better than we can possibly imagine.
Sure.
So much grander, so much bigger, so much more beautiful, and like, wow, just, you can't, there are no words, but he's also so much more relatable and personable, fun.
Yeah.
Not a word we'd use, right?
Yeah.
But that's what Heidi experienced. So Jesus then, he gives her a life review. So he shows her a life review. And then he grabs her hand and he gets this huge grin on his face. This is what Heidi told me. And she said, we took off. It's like we just started flying like super fast, first across Earth and then out, and then she could see Earth kind of disappearing behind her. And she said, it was like we were like Superman and Lois Lane, and we were laughing, and it was the funnest thing. But we were surfing a wave of light.
Wow.
She said, I looked down and I was barefoot and Jesus is barefoot, and it was like a wave, but it was a wave of light of all these colors. And I reached down and I could feel it in my hands.
Oh.
And he says to her, isn't this the greatest? Isn't this so cool?
Yeah.
And I said to her, he said, isn't this so cool? And she said, yeah.
Just getting pitted and barreled with Jesus.
Well, he knows how to relate to us. She's a 16-year-old who loved riding horseback, loved speed.
Yeah.
But he takes her, so she called it like we were coming toward this light that looked like this infinite light. And we crossed into it, and she said, so she said things that sometimes Christians and I at first were like, yeah, I don't know. But again, they're trying to describe things that are hard to understand, right? So she said, we crossed it, and it was like everything became one thing, and that one thing was God. Now, you could interpret that. So some come back and interpret it like, see, like kind of pantheistic, right? I'm God, you're God, everything's God. That's not what Heidi said. So she said, and suddenly what she said is that I had the understanding that God is the source of everything, and he is everywhere, but he's also beyond it. So he's theologians call it immanent. He's in everything. The scripture says that. For in him we live and move and have our being.
Yeah.
And all things are sustained by the powerful word of God. So he's sustaining everything. But then she finds herself sitting on the Father's lap. Which when I first heard that, I'll be honest, I was like, probably not.
Yeah.
Like that's just kind of,
Yeah.
So many of these, honestly, the first time, because I'm still skeptical, I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But when I hear 3, 4, 5 saying a similar thing, even like sitting on God's lap, and she said it was like he was embracing me. And I asked, okay, so where was Jesus? And she said, well, he was still there, but he was separate, but they were one.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing. And so then Jesus, when he puts her back in her body.
Well, Jesus is still human, right? At that moment. Partly human, or at least.
Appears that way.
He appeared in his human
I think he still
form.
is human.
Well, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the 3.0. That's the body 3.0.
Yeah, yeah.
So he is forever
See, I take it literal.
intertwined himself with humanity, with his creation.
That makes perfect sense to me. And that's kind of why I asked the question.
But that's biblical.
Well, I mean, it's a father-son relationship, and I think that because we can't view anything 4-dimensionally or 5-dimensionally, and when we read these stories, it's like I take only begotten Son to be a very spiritual description of the father-son relationship and they're communicating with each other one back and forth. So, I mean, that's what this show's done to me, is help me understand those complex things.
Which we can't fully understand.
But more than I did when I was like, wait a minute.
Where it doesn't make sense or it sounds like contradiction.
Yeah, how can
it doesn't have to be contradiction.
How can Jesus say, not my will, but yours be done? That doesn't make any sense if he's all encompassed.
Unless the whole universe is predicated on a relationship.
Hey.
So that relationship is actually what we were created for.
Exactly. And
it's why we value love so much.
Yeah.
And because there is at the center of the universe a relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what near-death experiencers like Heidi, who knew nothing about, she didn't believe in Jesus at the time. She does now.
Right.
And when Jesus put her back in her body, he left, but he also put his presence with her. Holy Spirit, that's who she decided later as she started to learn. So after that, she goes to Israel and she just wanted to learn her roots, but also Jesus' roots.
Right. Yeah.
And just fascinating. So yeah, people experience the triune nature of God.
Yeah.
But so Dean Braxton, another guy,
but the relationship as well.
He had sepsis. He has hospital records, dead an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And he talked with me about the experience of you'd be speaking to Jesus, but you also knew you were speaking to the Father and the Spirit. And he would say things like, this is actually Randy, who is a CEO, who also had the same kind of experience. And he said he started to realize when Jesus was with me speaking audibly, verbally, it was the Son, but when he was speaking to me directly into my being, it was the Spirit. And then he goes before the Father, who was like, I mean, power beyond you can imagine, but also love beyond you can imagine. So the Father's not separate. They're not separate. And that's what Dean Braxton said. He said, we think, Father, Son, and Spirit, 1, 2, 3, but they're just one. They don't even think that way there. That's what he said. They don't even think that way. Like, but again, so by analogy, so I put this analogy in Imagine the God of Heaven. That helps me. It's always back to Flatland, man.
Right.
Edwin Abbott is just brilliant genius. It's helped me so much. So I use that a lot. But imagine if, we create a 2-dimensional flat world, right? If I put my 3 fingers into their world, they're going to see me as 3 round slices in their flat 2-dimensional world. But what if I say to them, well, I'm not actually 3 separate round slices. I'm actually one being.
Sure.
But 3 round slices can never in 2 dimensions be one.
Right.
They have to remain 3 because they don't have a 3rd dimension to stack up into one unified being. So what if in higher dimensional reality or beyond our dimensional reality, the Father, Son, Spirit stack up into one unified being?
Yeah, we talked about that with the Flatland, like putting your finger into a piece of paper. And what you would see was just that ring of your finger. You wouldn't see the entirety of the thing
slice.
because it's just a slice, right? And we talked about that in context of like UFOs and all kinds of different things that we would maybe try to understand as multidimensional,
right,
or interdimensional, whatever it may be. And I think that's such an interesting analogy. If you have what would appear in our reality as 3 separate things are actually a single thing, just from like a mathematical or like a dimensional understanding of that, them being the same thing, but appearing. I mean, I think it's we can break your brain on these things.
Well, near-death experiences, I think, confirm the reality of the triune nature of God. Trinity, the word's not in Scripture, but the description, the revelation of God is Father, Son, and Spirit in Scripture. And they confirm it, even if they didn't know it or believe it.
Well, I think all we can understand as a human being is like, we're all a son or a daughter. We all come like a pure genetic version of our Father, right? So it's like they can be one in pure genetics. It doesn't have to, what I'm saying? Like everything here is like sort of a little blip of what we're supposed to figure out, like you said, the relationship. How do you understand relationship if you can't come from something? I mean, obviously there's not perfect families down here. Some people don't know their parents. They don't know where they came from, but ultimately that's the design of human beings, to experience that relationship. And then most men, are frustrated because of the relationship with what? Their father, right? It's always seems to be like a little blips and echoes of what we're supposed to figure out down here. What do you think the nature is of other beings to God and Jesus in heaven, to the Father and the Son? Like
other beings like
angelic beings,
or
where people
other
describe
creatures,
other
creations.
things around that relationship. And is there some sort of jealousy, some sort of confusion between what are we? Who are we in the story? Like, we're not the only character.
When in our first podcast, did I give you my theory of even why Earth?
I don't think so. Can't remember.
For that.
Okay, so it's just a theory.
Is it flat or round? Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So my theory is that, it says that this is God's plan before the creation of the world, right? So even before, what does before mean when you're outside of time? I don't know. But given that, and what we talked about of how angels are also created beings who apparently have a free will, right?
Right.
So they could love and worship God as well. So, and I don't know, was like this the first try, or is it all one grand plan? I kind of tend to think it's all one grand plan. But so these eternal beings, some of them chose not God.
Right.
And God in his love gave them what they thought they wanted. So he creates a place where he will stay out. Now, ultimately, that would be hell, where he would completely stay out. But he then also creates earth and the realm of earth, and he allows these fallen beings to rule for a time, have their way. And he creates humanity, maybe in a eternal capsule called Eden, surrounded by all the rest of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are questions I still have. Like,
Sure.
But with the choice, with giving us good and all the good, because that's all God can give is good, but also the forbidden fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. When we choose to experience the knowledge of good and evil, Eden becomes one with this realm of time and space, this temporal realm that Satan is allowed to govern for a time, right? And so here's the kicker. I think that's why God assigns angels to minister to and watch over us. So it says angels are ministering spirits to watch over humanity, right? And we have guardian angels, it seems like. Jesus said their angel is always before my Father in heaven. I think we talked in the other podcasts as near-death experiencers talk about guardian angels, scribe angels recording our lives, warrior angels, they're cherubim, they're seraphim. They're all kinds of creatures that we don't know of and haven't seen yet that near-death experiencers talk about. So, but I think the what he is doing on earth is allowing the angels who are still innocent. So they still have a free will and still could make an eternal decision to rebel, but they are guarding and ministering to us and learning. And it says, I think it's in Hebrews, even angels is talking about grace and how what God was doing through Jesus, why that was necessary for salvation, for forgiveness, and even angels long to look into these things. So is what he is doing, and he's having angels apparently record our lives. So like when Howard Storm comes out of the hell, she's rescued by Jesus out of the hellish place. Jesus says to the angels, show him his life. They have the book of our lives that plays out as this life review. So I think that's what God is doing, is not only is he teaching us why Jesus was necessary, but also why choosing relationship with God and following God's will as opposed to my will. It's what Jesus taught us to do. You know, your will be done on earth, because it's not as it is in heaven. How? I have to be willing, right? And I think these innocent angels are learning without having to experience evil, the lessons of both good and evil, so that God is making eternally free, loving creatures, both human and angelic, that will never rebel again in the new heaven and new earth.
Right.
Humans are like a redemptive movie they get to watch and learn from, but they don't have to experience. They're not in. They didn't make that.
I think that's true.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know, but it's my theory.
But it's interesting, like a human choosing God with this dimensional gate between us,
veil,
has to be sort of an inspiration to them. Why would a human being choose God? They don't even know what it is. They don't even know who he is. Why doesn't Jesus, like in these near-death experiences? So this is what held me up for so long. If it's really God, why didn't he just say, hey, I'm God, I'm Jesus, I did this, pray this, do this.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. But he didn't with Saul. You know, the Apostle Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, was arresting and killing Christians. When this brilliant God of light appears to him on the Damascus Road, Acts 9, right?
Yeah.
And he says, who are you, Lord? So he knows this is God.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm Jesus who you're persecuting. But Jesus doesn't tell him what to do. He doesn't explain the gospel. None of that. Why not? Right there.
Yeah.
And we sometimes think that, but what I started to realize is, well, if that's what God wanted to do, he could do it. Not limited.
Right.
Sure.
But he's always chosen. So instead he says to Ananias, you go tell Paul what needs to happen, how he needs to be baptized in the name of Jesus. So that's the way God works. He works life by life by life to redeem people.
So you believe angels watching humans work out their free will directly inspires their understanding of free will?
Theoretically.
Because it's like, these guys, look at the weird way that they're working out their free will. You know?
Do you think that changed though? And I would, my understanding would be, I would think so. And I asked this question of you, but do you think that paradigm shifted after the work of the cross? Like, do you think that you see the final victory at the cross of Christ, and that would essentially quell any further rebellions from angels, because they kind of know, here's end game happened here. Like, because at what point would you be like...
Well, again, you have to... So the difficult thing is we can only talk about these things in our time.
Well, our timeline, yes, a linear timeline, right?
And so one of the most telling things, a guy I just interviewed recently had a reunion with his brother who died 30 years ago in heaven. And he goes, I've missed you so much these last 30 years. And his brother who's in heaven goes, I thought I just came here yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's like time even is like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've actually had discussions, I think, which are fascinating. One in a couple of our conferences with Timothy Alberino, which just talks about like the asleep in Christ, like when you just fall asleep. And there's some hypothesis that we kind of sussed out just chatting in front of a conference, not recorded, was what if death is like a time event? In that sense, like we plod on, but like when we die, we arrive in heaven if we believe, but we arrive at the same time as all of our ancestors who believe they arrived just then as well. And maybe everybody who came after us, I believe they arrived at the same time. So in that sense, time, the way we think about it, it doesn't work that way. And he thinks he's been there for a day and it's been 30 years here, but he would have said, I just got here yesterday. And you're here now. Like it's a mind bender.
Peter, Jesus' disciple, said that in 2 Peter 3:8. He said to the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day.
Mm-hmm.
And near-death experiencers, the way they've described, they've said to me, there is no time. But then others have said, no, there was time, but there was all the time you ever needed. And then others have said, I experienced the past, present, and future all at the same time, all in one moment.
Yeah.
But again, I can't even, it's like,
right? I mean, we talked about this, like dimensional time, right? So
the cube.
Are there any other stories
it's a cube.
about this though? About this aspect of like folks talking about, unless you want to go to Nate's cube thing.
Oh, I do.
So is it a Rubik's cube?
Well, so yeah, I mean, I've noodled on this, like from what near-death experiencers say. So, we experience time linearly in one direction, one-dimensional time. But if you even had a second dimension of time, the way it would feel is that at every point on our timeline, there would be another infinite directional timeline. You could stay in that moment forever before experiencing another moment. So that would be like two-dimensional time. If you wrap that actually into I picture more of a globe. So imagine our timeline is like the equator. And then second dimensional time are the longitudinal timelines.
Yeah.
And then there's a point, the North Pole, that is a third dimensional point in time from which you would experience all points in time simultaneously. Well, that would be the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end in one third dimensional point in time.
And all created beings are inside of that.
Yeah.
And the relationship.
In some dimension. And the bigger question is God has created time even in all dimensions. So what does it mean that he's outside of that? I don't know.
No constraint. There's no constraint within. I mean, do you think that people then, do people have NDEs and then experience like different points in time at the same time? So
yeah, so like Greg Rickert was a guy I interviewed who, so I don't think I even had him in the book when I was doing that analogy. I think it's the second book, but he said he was there with Jesus. He has a life review, all that. And then he is experiencing the throne of God. He's experiencing heaven. And this angel that was kind of showing him around, he said, showed me this 2-dimensional time portal. And he says, look, and he looks into this, and I can't even conceptualize what he was trying to describe to me, right. So I'm not doing a great job. But he said it was like, he looked into it and he was back in ancient Egypt watching this battle take place, and he saw the pyramids, and that's how he knew it was Egypt. And it's like chariots and horses and all that. And he's watching this, and he knew I can't go there, but I can view it. I can experience it. But the viewing in heaven is complete. And so he said, what was weird is I could zoom in on one person and it was like I was experiencing everything they were experiencing. But I still knew I was separate here. So then it gets freakier.
Yeah.
So then the angel shows him another point in time, and he sees this young couple, and there's this like, and the guy has kind of funky hair, and he notices her, and she's really pretty. And then there's this blue orb of light, like by her stomach. Mm-hmm. And he asked, what is that? And the angel said, that's her child yet to be born. 2 years after that. Jeez. So here's the wild part. So 2 years after that, he's at a party with his family, and some friends of the family come, and there's this little 2-year-old girl who keeps coming up to him, is just enamored with him. And the mom says to him, I don't know why she's so enamored with you. She really likes you. And he looks at her and he realizes, oh my gosh, that's the woman I thought was pretty. And this must be her husband. He doesn't have a funky haircut anymore. And this must be that little girl that he had seen, in that time portal.
Do you think that's like when the Bible talks about like the hosts of heaven watching or cheering us on, like those the believers? Do you think that that's?
I don't know.
I mean, that happens.
Yeah, the Hebrews 12.
Yeah, that happens in real time now. Like folks are like,
I don't know. And this is, so this is where, and again, it's why I try to make a case for the scriptures, so people understand the Bible is not just another book.
Right? Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah,
and I'd love to spend some time going into some of that, because we can get so confused. And this is where near-death experiencers disagree.
Yeah.
Right? So some seem to indicate that people in heaven are not really disconnected from us, or they don't feel disconnected from us like we feel their disconnection, and that they can know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But they're not just sitting around doing nothing. Like they're busy. They're in the zone.
They're surfing.
They're loving life. I hope that's true.
Yeah, me too, actually.
But some say, no, they can't. And so I don't know. I mean, again, to me, I don't know the answer. They don't always agree, at least on their interpretation. What I'm trying to point out is these commonalities that they consistently report on is what the scriptures have been showing us about the reality of the world to come, the afterlife, heaven, hell, God, Jesus,
city of God,
the angels,
and Revelation,
the city of God and Revelation, all of it. And it's real life. That's the thing I think people miss. Yeah. It is what near-death experiencers say, I was more alive.
Yeah.
The experiences are more real, and they're expanded in experience. So,
yeah, it's like we have a natural inclination to, it's a downgrade of some kind. We do. Or it's a ghost grade. It goes one of the two.
Ethereal, less tangible.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you think that like when you talk about folks that have died and they don't realize they're dead, do you think it's because we're restored to essentially our first estate? And this is how we're meant to be?
That's a great, I have never thought of that, but I think that's a great point. Because that's always confused me. Like, what do you mean you didn't know? Because a lot of them.
Right.
Dr. Mary Neal is a spine surgeon, and she's, she's trapped under a waterfall for 30 minutes.
Right.
She knew she was dying, But when I ask her, like, did you realize you were dead? And she said, well, I didn't feel dead. I felt conscious and then more conscious. I felt alive and then more alive. So I never knew.
But that is exactly how people describe beings in like haunted houses. Like
what do you mean?
They don't know why it's almost like they're not there to scare and terrify the people that are still alive. They're almost confused. They don't know what they're doing. It's like they're sort of trapped. I don't think the ghosts know they're dead. I don't think that they're stuck in that sort of suspension.
But I think my point was like we get reset, or we reset to Adam, or we reset to pre-fall, like where this is our actual like first estate, like right. That's why you don't know you're dead, because you feel more alive. You're like this,
but you're still alive though. I mean, like from your perspective, you just almost like I had an out of body experience. It wasn't that I didn't know I was having an out of body experience, but I was clearly having one. You know. It's like
what was the?
It was a Backstreet Boys show. Like Nate it was
that would make me
a football concussion, and I was like, it was a football concussion. I was sort of out of my body for about 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah,
that's a long time.
It was really weird. Well, I don't know how long it was actually.
But you were concussed. Yeah, you were out for 2 hours.
No. I had the concussion, and then I couldn't. It was like I was in a whole nother world. It was like. Someone gave me a Rolodex of all my dreams. I could go through them. I could remember every dream I ever had.
Like dream?
Like any dream, like recurring dreams.
Like naked at school, or forgot that there's a show the next day.
It was like I was in a different part of my brain, and it was like all stored there. And I was like going like old yearbooks. Like, what is this? What am I doing? And I couldn't remember.
Really?
I couldn't remember any of the plays. So I had to come out of the game because I couldn't remember like people's names. I didn't really know what was going on.
So you were back conscious.
I was conscious, but I was like...
But you're still in this other realm?
Well, then, no, what happened is I had the concussion, and then everything went black. Then I was like, came to for like, it was like a couple seconds, and I was like, oh man. And then I went back to the huddle, tried to like, they were like looking at me like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. And then like the play started, and I couldn't remember where to go. I couldn't remember what my job was. I got to go, all
those guard/kicker.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
So you got to like block this guy, but I couldn't remember. So I came out. I'm like, I can't remember the plays. I can't remember. And the coach was like pissed because he's like, what are you doing? What's happening? Right. Then I sat on the bench, and then I floated out of myself and I went somewhere else. But I was clearly about 10, 15 feet above myself.
It was seeing the field,
watching myself sit there.
But you're still sitting there.
Yes. I was a freshman in high school, so I was like
were you
15.
also aware of sitting there, or were you completely disconnected?
No.
From your
I was
body?
disconnected.
Okay.
So I was like watching myself.
So you got bumped into the astral.
Yeah, I got bumped in the astral
because the old Rydell helmets weren't very good. They're not a lot of protection.
But it's the closest thing I can understand to that feeling you're describing. It was like I didn't know I knew I was out of my body, but I didn't know.
Right.
So and looking back on it, I have this just like still frame, old crappy 1995 JPEG in my head of me like seeing myself sit on the bench in the field, like a 15-foot view, like almost like I'm up on a ladder looking down.
Yeah, that's
what I can see still. Yeah. That's about the
and
memory.
It was vivid.
Yeah. Well, hard to say.
Yeah.
Just it was also Halloween. So it was like one of the weirdest experiences.
It was also Halloween.
Yeah. And
just to throw it
out there. But just 15 years old, too dumb to really know like what was going on. No experience, never felt anything like that before. But there's no one like saying, "Hey, you're having out of body experiences."
Well, so when Moody originally called it a near death experience, and I don't actually like that term because most of the people I study are after death experiences.
Dead.
Yeah. Well, they at least our version of clinical death.
Yeah,
like no brainwaves.
That's what I'm saying. 45 minutes, you're dead.
Yeah, there's no place to store memories.
Yeah,
right. But many people like yourself at the point of death or great trauma sometimes do have similar experiences.
Yeah,
and that's why he called it near death. Because sometimes it's like someone coming into a car accident and they're screeching, they're about to hit, and they leave their body. And it's even before the impact.
Wow.
So sometime, and so I have,
Wow.
that's the whole, did we talk about Wilder Penfield, the neurosurgeon back in the 50s? So he did this he was trying to cure epileptic patients. And he did this surgery where they would open the brains of epileptic patients, and he's trying to shock across different neural networks to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do this with them awake because the brain has no nerves in it. So you just numb around and pretty weird, right? But he pretty much mapped the brain that way.
Mm.
So he was he was a materialist. So he thought the conscious is the brain. There's no soul. Until he starts doing this and he's zapping across places, and all of a sudden, like, the right arm would go up and the person would say, "You made my right arm go up. I didn't do that." Penfield's like, "Who's the you saying I did that?"
Yeah.
Not you, right? Like,
right.
So it actually changed his mind that there is a dualism of a body and soul. But he zapped a place where the patient would sometimes say, "I'm leaving my body now." And they would like be going up out of their body.
Whoa.
And then he would stop and they'd come back down into it. Now, skeptics like Dr. Michael Shermer use that to say, so see, we know these near-death experiences are all in the brain. That's proof. It's just all in the brain. Well, that's not proof. Because I've got 10 points that it being in the brain does not explain at all. Verifiable observations, blind people seeing things that they would have nothing in their brain about.
Reading stickers on top of the ceiling fan.
Yeah, so all that. But however, it might be that there is a trigger point in the brain that releases the soul. So that at the point of trauma, that whether you call it the silver cord or the, whatever, I don't know. That it triggers us. So at trauma or at bodily death or at clinical death, it triggers our soul leaving. And that might be what DMT, ayahuasca, other gateway drugs may be truly doing that. They may be releasing the soul or astral projection or, I
was going to say that, like, John, we talked to like an ex-witch who basically said that she could astral project, but it was a biological function. She could actually biohack to figure out there's a way to do this, to eject your spirit from your body. And she practiced it like a skill. Right. To the point where she could do it. She could literally astral project herself out of her body. And it was just something that was in that way biological. Like that's the way she described it. That's the way she described it as a biological
and here's the
function,
thing.
which is bizarro.
It might be a real spiritual experience.
100%.
I don't know for sure. Like Howard Storm, the guy who he became a pastor, but he told me, he was in the 70s in academia. So he said, I did LSD, I did ayahuasca, I did all these gateway drugs. And he said, my near-death experience was so much more real and vivid than any of those.
That's why I'm inclined to think that we're body, soul, and spirit. And that when you're talking about the astral, even talking about that experiment of the brain, like there's a biological way to separate spirit, but it sounds much different. That the astral projection thing and what exists in witchcraft and the occult sounds very much different than what I'm hearing, and I would surmise is like a soul experience, which is what an NDE sounds like. And I think that could be.
I think that's true, and I think there might be though a spiritual aspect to it. What I tell people is just remember you're going into the second heaven. Yeah. It's ruled by evil.
Psychedelics. We've had a
and so,
number of episodes.
You meet these very nice, kind spirit beings who they want to guide you. Then you just test them. That's what Scripture says. Test every spirit and say, were you sent by Jesus? Do you call Jesus your master?
Yeah.
And just see what happens.
Whom do you serve?
You'll know.
Yeah.
That's how you can know.
I think we talked about this in the last episode too, but like people who have near-death experiences suddenly can astral project as well. They have this ability all of a sudden, like they've been popped out their shoulder got popped out of joint. Now they can pop it out and pop it back in almost with their spirit. It's really strange when you hear those things. It's like, I think
sometimes they come back with what we would call spiritual gifts, kind of like the
X-Men.
Well, I mean,
so weird.
They come back with like prophetic gifts, or they can see something that's about to happen before it happens, or intuitive gifts, healing gifts, and so they don't. Another interesting thing is many times also when they come back, there are deceased spirits. Are they deceased spirits or are they demonic? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but they want to channel through them.
Interesting.
It's like they get marked, maybe in that realm. There's like they have a mark where people are, where these spirits are now like,
or is it like, I think your elbow popped out may be a good, or your shoulder popped out may be a good one. It's like the veil is thinner, or the trigger's easier. I don't know. These are all questions I ponder.
But it
sometimes.
seems also,
but they have when they tell them. So some don't discern, and they start going down the road of mediumship.
Sure.
Yep.
It does not lead them to Jesus. It leads them away. But others tell them no, and then they leave them alone.
I mean, that's how every experience is. You wake up, find your dad's guitar, and you're in the closet, and all of a sudden you're like playing it. Next thing you know, you're in a band. Next thing you know, you're like, like the human experience is one of.
It's just a slippery slope.
It's just a slippery slope, and all of a sudden you're like. But I think
before you know it, you're a rock and roll.
But it seems though there's also other spiritual laws where people will do, especially when you interview some of the satanic ritual abuse stuff. They do certain physical acts to unlock a spiritual gift that is used for evil. Obviously.
Right.
But they'll do certain types of sacrifices or ceremonies where there's blood involved and or horrific like torture.
Right.
And then they unlock something in some kid. They teach, these kids how to do these horrible things. And like they know the rules. They know like, well, if we subject them to this kind of torture or abuse, this will happen. They'll get this gift.
So it's so demented.
It is, but it I think we've looked at the spiritual realm from 50 different views. Whether someone has a run-in with a creature that seems to have these abilities. Where does it come from? What does it do? How do we as Christians absolve that? How do we make sense of that?
Well, and that's why I say I don't know how to unless what the test Scripture gives us, which is ask them where they come from.
But some of those things are coming from the second heaven. So you'd be like all the there's many different beings and characters and entities in the second heaven that can come sort of tinker with us.
So that's the other thing is the angelic apparently can take many forms as well.
Yeah.
Have you guys discovered that too?
Well, what is an angel?
Well, that's true. I mean, so angel is it's like saying Kleenex.
Yeah.
Well, like there are lots of brands of Kleenex, right?
Sure.
So angel just means messenger.
What do near-death experiencers say when angels look like, what they are, how many types there are?
I mean, I have on my to-do list to go deep into this. So I haven't gone deep into this, but just from my limited, so like Jim Woodford, the commercial airline pilot, I think we had talked about him. He had, well, first of all, he had never prayed a day in his life. So he was like self-made millionaire, commercial airline pilot. He's like, I don't need God.
Yeah.
As he's dying, he realizes I've never thanked God for the things I thought were my own making. He realized this wasn't all my doing. And so I think God's pursuing us till the last minute. And he cries out, forgive me, Lord. Because he said, when you're dying. He first sees where he was headed. So he sees what he calls us, it's like barren but it's kind of rolling off darker and darker into this crevasse of like a deep abyss of, he said it was almost like charcoal, like stone. And he was curious, and he looks down into it, and he sees like, must have been thousands of miles away, but look almost like a campfire in the distance, like a fire in the distance. And then he hears a door open up, and he sees this. So you want to talk about, I would never have believed that angels are like this or demons are like this if I hadn't heard so many of them.
Yeah.
I just would have thought that you've been watching to me late night Hollywood, but it's changed my mind to think that maybe behind some of these things we see that's trying to terrorize us are real beings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But he sees this creature that the way he described it reminded me of a Balrog.
Mm.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about
yeah.
in Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
It's like this creature coming out of the fire. It's huge. It's massive, and it's on fire.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what he described. And it like smells him or something and comes bolting up.
Wow.
However deep that was. And he just drops his knees and he's saying, God save me, help me, help me.
Mm.
And the creature says, Jim, I'm here for you. We're here for you. Come, Jim. It's your time. And he was freaked out. He's like, it knew my name. Mm. It's like it had ownership of him.
Yeah.
Right? So it was trying to claim what was its own. But when he cries out then to God, these three angels come and basically battle it back in.
Like a real spiritual warfare.
It's a spiritual battle that he described. Again, he wasn't a believer. He didn't, he hadn't read the Bible or anything. So then he sees these three angels. So one he described as 10 feet, another like 12 feet, another like 15 feet. Which again, I would never have thought that, except you would not believe how many near-death experiencers have described them somewhere between 10 and 15 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Big guys. And the one, and so then he said they had like these incredibly violet eyes as they came up to him. And he said they were like luminescent. These very tall white robes. And he said these kind of like spikes coming off their shoulders that he realized it almost made like a halo of light, but he realized that was probably their wings, and that the light that was coming off of them kind of collided to make that halo effect.
Interesting.
And the violet eyes, I've not heard from anyone else. So sometimes they describe other kinds of eyes, but he described these violet eyes. The 10-foot one was his guardian. That he said he was, so later the guardian told him he was the 2031st human he had guarded.
Wow.
That's interesting.
That's wild. That's cool.
Which will also throw a curveball if you ever do the math.
Yeah.
Right.
They're generations. Yeah.
I think it's interesting, like over this conversation of like how often human beings think that sort of the collective knowledge of these things doesn't bore its way into our brains over time. Like the Life Review is like the Ghost of Christmas Past, the Scrooge story, where he gets to go back and see, or It's a Wonderful Life.
I totally wonder if Dickens didn't have a near-death experience.
Yeah,
because it's so, or It's a Wonderful Life too.
Yeah, or like the Field of Dreams, where you're not allowed to go back a certain point, and it's heaven and hell. It's like this place where the ghosts can come back and relive their life. And so many of these stories that have just been like, obviously that's an 80s movie, but I think they lifted that story from other stories that human beings have sort of created a framework of the afterlife and the rules and understanding the spiritual realm. And we don't really come up with anything original. We just sort of lift from, our overlap with heaven. And it is real. And I think it bores itself into the halos of like cartoons with angels with halos. Where does that come from?
Right.
Probably some near-death experience, and some cartoonists just, like that stuff doesn't just come out of the brain somewhere. It's based on something, I think.
Well, John, you just made our Christmas reel. So this year, just look out for Blurry Creatures. We'll talk about Dickens and The Wonderful Life being probably had an NDE.
I mean, the reason he also describes this middle 12-foot angel as a scribe angel.
Yeah.
And I said, why? Yeah. He said, well, because he had like
he's writing
stuff. And then the third, the largest that he said was clearly in charge was a warrior. And interestingly, like almost like the Roman leather, with the things on the arms and the leather. I mean, why? I have no idea, right? But enough have described things like that have made me go, okay, well, maybe there's something to it. So all these, there's a whole hierarchy of God's creations.
Yeah.
And I mean, Paul tells us that in Ephesians chapter 6.
Well, clearly if they're guarding us, there's protections. There's a need to keep things going. It's like, a lot of people have jobs now that have security guards around them so they can do their job. We're here to do something, and we need help, and we need protection from something, which is one of my last questions for you. So in this space, it seems like there's beings that are trying to get you from going from first heaven to third heaven. And they're trying to almost, even in the afterlife, like, okay, you died, you got to walk down the street and go in this building, right? But on the way, there's stuff that's going to pop out of the alleyway and try to like take you down. It seems like
not always.
Okay, but it seems like there's some sort of
not always
beings are trying to like.
Well, so many of the near-death experiencers knew that this welcoming committee, if they came, basically to the earth realm, that they were there to welcome and love and guide them, and protect them.
Exactly.
And every time I would ask, so Dr. Neal was one of them. So the welcoming committee was right there by the riverbank.
Yeah.
And she said, and to protect me, another woman to protect me, another guy to protect me. And I would always ask, protect you from what?
Yeah.
And they would always say, I don't know. I just intuitively knew they were there to protect me. So I do think, there is a battle going on. And like Daniel.
For souls, like in the limbo in
it's not just, I think it's not just battle for souls. I think it's also battle for purpose. So think about it, like Daniel chapter 10. It's kind of like we get a little window cut into the spiritual world right there. So Daniel's praying and fasting and asking God for things. And this angel appears to him and says to him, but 3 weeks later, and he says to him, from the first day you started to pray and fast, I was sent, but I've been detained by the prince of Persia for 3 weeks. Okay, so the delay to the answer was the battle going on. Now, interestingly, Persia's modern day Iran, right? And the prince of Persia then would be some kind of hierarchical authority over the realm of Persia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he says, after he tells Daniel his message, he says, now I'm going back to fight against the prince of Persia. And then the prince of Greece will come. Michael, your archangel, is the only one who's supporting me to fight them.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So some have told me, near-death experiences have told me, we don't realize how much God is doing to protect us.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, and it's an interesting thing to realize that God is an empowerer. He's not a controller. Satan's a controller.
Right.
Yeah.
Evil's a controller.
Sure.
God is a giver of opportunity and free will and empowerment. So he creates angelic beings and seraphim and cherubim and councils, if you want to go there, and humans. and he empowers us to work alongside him if we're willing.
My last question, John, would be this: like, with all of this for almost 40 years, as a former pastor and as a Christian, where does this land for you? Like, 'cause you don't want to create theology out of this, right? Because these are people's experiences. But what does this do to your biblical theology, if you will? What is the compilation of these stories, experiences, interviews, the understanding of people's near-death experiences? How's that impacted your theology? Because I think the danger with things like this and anything in the blurry spaces, you can't make that your theology, but it does inform you about theology, right?
Yeah, I think it can bring light and color to the truths that God has given us. For me, it has in a lot of ways. Like the things that Scripture says, even let's take the simplest thing. Yeah. God is love. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, honestly, that lands pretty flat. Right. In this world, because he is love. And I believe he is the source of all the love we've ever experienced. For a child, from a spouse, from a grandparent or parent, but it's all filtered through a broken humanity. And so we don't know what that really means. Well, when you hear the way near-death experiencers describe being in God's presence and complete, like there's no one who's known you better. Yeah. No one who's been through every high and every low, knows all your sins and faults and everything, and is crazy about you enough to take a bullet, literally, and unconditionally loves you and wants to do life with you and wants you to enjoy life with him. I mean, that kind of love, words can't explain. And so when you hear it again and again and again from these people's experience, God loves you takes on a whole new depth of meaning. And it changes the way you live. Because you realize he is the relationship I've always wanted.
Sure.
And all other relationships just go deeper and better in that experience.
I love it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. And I don't think you can understand like the story you just told before that of Prince of Persia without some sort of context. So like, I think a lot of pastors they just hop over those and keep going to the stuff that we can understand. But there's a really important lesson to understand Daniel and this prayer and this thing being held up and what he's doing in the spiritual realm. Why do we fast? Maybe fasting is allowing us to get
back to those spiritual laws, right? Yeah. That we don't, some of them we have to discover.
So I think if we don't have context, we will put 90% of the Bible over here and just focus on the 10% that we can sort of get. And I think that creates a lot of Christians in our realm who walk away from their faith,
right?
Because there's no answers. Okay, what are these things? What's going on? Why is God doing X, Y, Z? And we say, well, let's just talk about the gospel.
Well, we're not willing to wrestle with it long enough to make sense of it.
Yeah, these stories will give you so much context, and like you said, it will flood it with meaning and context and help you go, okay, this is how it could be possible.
And I think the biggest so what of all this, and honestly, I'm not as interested in near-death experiences as I'm interested in what they point to.
Yeah.
Because what they point to is that this life is not the one to try to hold on to.
Yeah.
It's Hebrews 11. Don't live for this life. Live this life in light of the life to come. I mean, this life has purpose and meaning. It does. And in fact, every moment has purpose and meaning because it's just the first chapter of the rest of the book.
Well, it seems to extend perfectly.
It does.
You don't hop out of the car, get in a new one. You literally are in the next car before you even know you're out of it.
Exactly.
And so then you get the life review. So everything you do now does echo, and it means, and it's important. And so live like eternity is today, because it is.
You almost quoted Gladiator there.
I'm proud of you.
Are we doing life, echoes, and eternity?
Yeah.
Shadows and dust.
But it's true. It's like it's happening. Like eternity is happening right now, whether you accept it or you don't. And so like what you do is important.
Yeah.
The little things you do. And there's just so much more. I Appreciate it. Thank you for coming in and dropping all this on us. I know you've had this conversation a billion times, so
fun.
Trying to have a new.
We need
one.
a trilogy, John. We got to like 20% of our notes.
Oh, I know. We didn't. I know. We didn't.
even-
We didn't. Even
We got a
go-
lot to get to, so we'll have to do this again.
And you just brought up. I mean, everything you said, I've got like 5 shoots
I know,
going
I know.
off. You know,
Yeah.
like even just the life of heaven,
Mhm.
and what you start to realize of the way we live our lives does have an impact on how we enter into the life to come.
Yeah.
And that's a whole. You know, we probably
Next time, trilogy. The trilogy. We'll have to get you back here. But yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks,
The Return of the King, the
Dude,
final book.
Tell our fans
Yeah.
and listeners and where they can interact with you and support you.
Well, I have a podcast now.
Let's go.
Imagine Heaven podcast with John Burke,
Go.
and then Imagine Heaven and Imagine the God of Heaven are books you can get anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate it. So it's so fascinating. It's helpful, especially for the ADD kind of brains that sort of catalog all the weird and the strange and don't know where to file it all. But I think you can draw lines to all these stories. You know, you can draw lines to the weirdest of the weird, and still, it can still kind of excite and set the gospel on fire in a good way.
oh, totally.
Yeah. But
Awesome.
many
Yeah.
blurry creatures out there. So thanks, John.
Thank you.